thought you just rolled.
Yes?
If you go rolling over rock.
Don't think about it.
Over rocks, trees, and sand.
Nori.
Oh my.
Tulil men noritas. Heru Sauron.
Was that necessary?
Why would he pretend to be you?
I thought it would look really cool.
Why'd you lie to me?
Thought you were here to help me.
You know, I didn't think about that.
You did not think about that.
You were trying to trick me.
I did not think this through.
We did not.
We did not.
Wait, how'd you get here so fast?
They do it off screen. Off screen. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. You're wearing armor.
The whole way here.
Ask the horse!
He must be exhausted.
The horse is dead.
King of the Southlands, how is it your path crossed with his? How is it you are here?
How is it you are here?
He's supposed to be here.
I should have never have set you on that ship. I should have trusted you. It is a mistake I will not make again.
You were right the whole time, and
All men are stupid, okay? Men, stupid.
You are always so right.
I never had to learn. And when I surfaced, all I could do was swim and pray I had chosen wisely. I did not cross that bitter ocean, only to drown now.
I could see your lips move.
Didn't move my lip. Yeah, it's not that I'm a bad actor.
No.
I can't move my lips.
What are we to do?
The only thing we can do. Swim.
Okay, but what are we really gonna do?
Actually, I was hoping that you had an idea, Tommy.
Synchronized swimming.
No, she doesn't.
Now there's an idea.
Honestly, I think I got PTSD from seeing that thing.
My dad could beat up your dad. Let's have a laugh.
In a world of remakes and remasters,
Are we playing for keeps?
what was once sacred and cool has now soured and become lame. Gone are the days of Pogs and Cowabunga. Now is the reign of slurp juice and dabs. Kids these days don't even know how bad they've got it. Now it's up to the best generation to rise to the occasion and make a show that dares to go where a lot of other nerdy shows have already gone quite a bit. That's right. They're going to talk about it a lot.
Hello and welcome back to the show. We lost a guest during that video, but we're back. Thanks for joining in. We got a lot of people watching live, and we got a great show planned for you tonight. This is Best Gen, where nerds complain about nerdy things, and it's called Best Gen because we're all roughly from the same gen. Happen to think it's the best, not because we as people are better than you, but because the movies were.
Yep.
So we just like to wax nostalgic and reminisce on the better days. Oh boy, we got a lot to discuss. We got Rings of Power finale. We got the She-Hulk finale. We got Andor episode 6, like the end of the second arc, and House of the Dragon, and Jared's back, everybody.
Jared's back.
Yeah.
I gotta get used to it. Jared's back.
Oh, now he switched on you.
Jared's in the hot seat today.
Oh, boy.
If you're newer to the show, Jared used to come on a lot, but he took a brief hiatus to get married. But he's back. He's back, everybody. And I thought, what better way to welcome him back to the show than to give him his own stinger that's not embarrassing at all. Are you ready for this,
At
Jared?
all.
If it's anything like the last one, I'm gonna love it.
Here we go.
Congratulations!
Thank you. That means a lot. It was well worth it. Well worth the wait.
I made it especially for you.
Thanks, Alan.
Jared's married. He's been busy getting busy. And since he's back, we kicked out
a lot of those jokes tonight. I want you to know I've prepared a script. So I've got a list in front of me. There's gonna be zingers.
Oh,
There's
man.
gonna be zingers.
And since Jared Prime's back, we kicked other Jared off the show because we don't need him anymore. But we're also joined by my brother David. Good friend Cora's back, and special guest TheAngryMexa is joining us again for the finale because I love him. So
love you too, bro. Love you all. You're so funny.
You're almost at 500 subs now, right?
Yes.
Last time I looked, it was pretty dang close.
Yeah.
So if you haven't, go over to his channel after the stream. Don't leave now.
Yes.
But let's get him to. You'll be at 1K in no time. So
thank God.
Yeah, thanks for coming back, guys. We're gonna talk about Rings of Power first because some people haven't watched everything, and then they can leave. Holy cow! This was real bad. But Jared, we haven't heard your opinion on Rings of Power at all because you've been gone.
No.
So why don't we start with you? And this better be a good take. Or
this is my last show. Is that what you're saying?
Maybe.
Okay. Well, that's a good question. So I think that ultimately, I wasn't completely disappointed with it. There were some good things that, there were some stunning visual effects. There were some weird things, like the whole orcs and snakes clothing. I was like, I don't understand where this is going.
It's because the sun burns them to a crisp. Apparently now yeah. So they had to wear clothes.
In the finale, it kind of explains that, right? Like how they make Mordor, and you're like, oh, okay, well,
yeah. Except for
they're always fighting in Mordor, so they don't need that. I mean, that doesn't make sense because I'm pretty sure they went to several other locations.
Yeah,
but that's okay. But anyways, so I was like, okay, that's weird. But I ultimately enjoyed it because I didn't think too much about it.
I think that's the only way you can enjoy the show.
Yeah,
I don't even enjoy it if you don't think too much. Your horse edit where she's smiling and riding the horse.
Yeah, there were definitely few things like that where I was like, I don't get what this is about, but that's okay. He loves riding horses, I guess.
I can definitely understand that if you turn your brain off, like it looks pretty enough to enjoy it. But my contention is this is Tolkien, and that is a super low bar, and Tolkien is the paragon of excellence, and that's not what I want to have to do when I'm watching a Tolkien adaptation.
And my problem.
Well, there was a lot. Sorry to interrupt again, Dave, but I think there was a lot that like it was cool to see some of the other cities that weren't exactly in Middle Earth, right? So it was kind of cool to see kind of part of the other ocean or the other world, especially that one
Numenor.
Yeah, which was pretty neat. I gotta say too that I think leading up to it, I was really going to be disappointed because their armor wasn't going to be super impressive. Like it was just going to be painted on and stuff, right? And I think there were maybe a couple instances where I was like, okay, that looks a little cheaper, and it's not like the best armor, but it didn't look as bad as like some of the stuff that you see in The Witcher, where I was like, what are they doing with the Nilfgaardians armor in The Witcher?
That was pretty dopey.
Yeah, that was
right. But like this armor, I was like, okay, it's okay. It's maybe not the best, but it wasn't.
Yeah. No, I agree, but like okay isn't the word I want to use to describe a Tolkien adaptation, you know?
Right, especially with the budget
Especially when you spent $1 billion.
Yeah, especially when you spent this should be very far from okay.
Yeah.
You spent $1 billion on it.
And that's the issue. What's the budget for The Witcher? 300 million for the whole show, and this is 456 million just for the season alone, and 200 and something for the rights.
Yeah, when you take that into consideration, it's just unforgivable.
They spent $2 million a minute. That's what they spent. They spent $2 million per screen minute.
That's insane.
Yeah.
If I gave a whole bunch of nerds $2 million for screen minute, I guarantee we'd get better than this crap.
That'd be the best show ever.
It would.
Yeah.
It was 100%
They gave what $1 million a minute to House of the Dragon, and what did they give us?
Oh yeah.
And that Randall Condal looks like a nerd. You know, he looks like a fantasy D&D type of player.
Yeah, and comparing it to Peter Jackson's films, which are, oops, I didn't mean to close that. Are they like they're so old now? I would, there's no reason to. There's no excuse, really.
Yeah,
even to the Hobbit.
Even the Hobbit with its excessive lengthening, was better than this. But to the show's credit, I think there are some things that were well done. The
like the a lot of the
fantastic.
sets, exactly. Like
half
Jared
of the
said,
costuming was really good. The other half was just absolutely terrible plastic armor with like screen printed spandex undershirts, and that was nonsense.
Well,
but,
see, I don't know if they actually were though. There was a lot of like stuff that looked like it was more.
Well, the actual guards, their Under Armour was kind of like
more
a
like
quilted padding.
It was supposed to look like leather padding, but it wasn't. It was like cloth that had been like embroidered to look bumpy. But
that was fine. But it was Queen Muriel's armor.
Yeah,
she
underneath her armor, she was wearing
some spandex golden print thing, and it was just it was so bad, it was laughable. But if you just glance at it, I guess it looks fine, But it's just these things with the budget that they had really had no excuse for it. So there are some things that I think they did well, and this last episode I think was probably the best episode. I really enjoyed that they finally got down to the politics about Halbrand, Sauron, influencing them and actually convincing them to make the rings. I liked that inner stuff. The Harfoots are still stupid. The character motivations across the entire series were wish-washy, back and forth, unclear. But I think they kind of somewhat pulled it together in the very last episode, and it's a shame because the rest of it was an abysmal mess. But I really did enjoy the forging of the rings in that bit. I just wish that was peppered in more, and it was sacrificed again. The same reason why, one of the main reasons why the Wheel of Time suffered is because they tried to shove in the stupid mystery box about who is the Dragon Reborn. It's the same thing here. They shoved in this thing about, oh, who is Sauron? Is it these M&M witches? Is it this stranger that fell from the sky? Is it this mysterious guy that is Halbrand on a raft? Who knows? I don't know. Who is it?
I loved that they actually thought that they were being clever this episode.
I know.
It's the stranger, guys.
All of the reveals were completely on the nose. Like, nothing has any stakes. We already know that this is Mordor. We already know that this is Sauron. We already know that Isildur isn't dead because he shows up in the new ones. They didn't even reveal that he was still alive in the end of this. It's like, we already know this thing.
Yeah, the last we saw was two episodes ago, and his horse just well, we haven't seen him for 3 episodes, but we know that his horse runs off to go get him.
Right. And he doesn't pull him out of the wreckage or anything. And again, why did they show the Balrog too? They didn't go back to the dwarves.
He's not going to show. I guarantee you, he won't show up till much later.
Yeah,
when the show's ready. When the show's ready for him, they literally just put him in there so they could have a shot with the Balrog.
It was so dumb. And it's just like, you spent all this money, and again, another good thing is every once in a while there will be one line of dialogue that's like, oh, that's surprisingly profound and sounds like Tolkien. But the majority of the dialogue is absolutely abysmal.
Yeah.
It does not connect from A to B. The people are not talking to each other. The dialogue is just a means to an end to get from their one scenic shot that they're trying to make to the next one. They just came up with, oh, we got to have this shot, we got to have this shot, we got to have this moment where Gladriel does this cool thing, so let's throw in some random dialogue to kind of piecemeal this story together. And it was just so unfortunate.
It feels like like a Zack Snyder movie, but that's even a bad comparison because his movies are way better than this.
Yeah.
But it's the same approach of like, oh, we have this idea and we have this, like you were saying, and the journey to weave them together and to get to each piece is just atrocious.
There's so many examples. We pointed out several specific ones in the show where just the dialogue does not make any sense. It's not how normal people talk to each other. It's not how dialogue works.
And on top of that, it's not how Tolkien writes.
That's the most important thing. But even if I've already written off this being a faithful adaptation of Tolkien from the get-go, I'm like, okay, I could just imagine this being a fan fiction based on the worlds of Tolkien loosely. But even then, the logical consistency throughout the show just breaks down entirely.
Yeah, I'm not making, in my meme edits, I'm not making fun of lore changes. I some of them I gripe about, but I'm just making fun of the show's internal inconsistency.
Right. And I think just to compare it to other shows, like other epic shows that we've had recently. For example, Witcher 1, you wanted to watch season 2, correct? You saw Witcher 1, and there were gripes about it, but you watched it and you were like, I want to see season 2. You watch season 2 of The Witcher, and you can gripe about it, but you're going, I want to see what season 3 is. This looks awesome.
Sure.
Rings of Power?
No.
I'm sitting here going, I don't know if I want to watch season 2. Right? I mean, I'll even put this. I thought the Wheel of Time, and I'm not a massive Wheel of Time fan like some of you guys are with the books and everything, but Wheel of Time, I'm interested in season 2. I am. I genuinely am.
Yeah,
I'm not interested in season 2 of Rings of Power. I'm just not.
That's the difference. I hate the Wheel of Time adaptation for what it did to the lore, but it was internally consistent.
Well,
yes. Like it wasn't compared to Rings of Power.
It's a good word.
There wasn't just glaring stupid things that were happening episode. Like I couldn't make the same meme edits about the Wheel of Time season 1 that I have about Rings of Power because I hate it because they're butchering the lore, completely destroying the story, and they for no reason. They didn't need to, but at least it's a story that's been told.
Yeah,
I mean,
And
I don't know anything. I'm sorry, I don't know anything about the Wheel of Time, but I saw the story and understood the story, and like Corwin said, I want to watch season 2. Let's see what's happened, and maybe I get interested in the lore, and I want to I want to read the books.
Read the
because of
books;
it.
they're
Yeah.
fantastic. I love them.
And see, that's what I'm saying. Even the House of the Dragon, we're ready. I mean, we've gone through. We had it's not the finale, right? There's still one more episode.
I was sure that House of the Dragon would be worse than Rings of Power.
Yes, but
I have videos reacting to the trailer and saying this is going to be a dumpster fire.
But
and it's good. I've never been more wrong in my life.
So yeah, but Game of Thrones, left something, a bit of a wound. Season 8 left a wound, so that's why we expected the Game of Thrones show to be bad.
Yeah, I'd agree with that 100%. and so I mean I think that's really the penultimate thing when it comes to Rings of Power. Amazon threw $1 billion at a show and it's flopping, and they know it's flopping. Reviews are in. You look at Rotten Tomatoes, you look at shows like this, you look at any other, the Angry Joe show, for example, they are crapping all over this thing. You look at any other large critic or just fanfic or on Reddit, no one likes it. Everyone is watching it because we like Tolkien, we like Lord of the Rings, we like Peter Jackson's movies, for example, and we're holding on to those and we're wanting something, but we're just not getting it. And Amazon's freaking out because they just spent $1 billion on something that's flopping, and it is flopping. There's no ands, ifs, or buts. They've lost money on this. They will lose money on this.
And I will add, even critics that I have seen that don't absolutely hate it, they're still baffled at why it's not better. They're like, it was okay, but where's the money? Where did this go? It's disappointing. I haven't seen any critic that's saying I love it. It's amazing. Aside from the reviews that just post in there, but the actual video reviewers on YouTube, I've only seen meh. It's okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen really anybody praising it and saying that it's phenomenal.
Only on Twitter,
Forbes.
But yeah,
Forbes magazine came out with an article that said like even these big battle episodes couldn't save the dumpster fire that is Ring of Power. And
I think so. Go on.
It's just sad. It's just really they killed it, and now they're going to have to. They're so deep into it, the money pit wise. They're so deep into it. They're going to have to do a season 2, and
they're already filming season 2.
They're already putting the finishing touches on it, from as far as I know.
Yeah,
and they
started production recently. Yeah,
they've got.
But
to
they've said it will take 2 years to finish, which is. So, but anyway, this is I think is a good comparison because you've talked about how you were excited to see The Witcher season 2 and season 3, which is because a lot of people had problems with season 1 and season 2.
Yes,
and I think that the big reason is Henry Cavill, because despite all of the dumb things that they put in the show, you still have a super interesting character played by an actor who's doing a phenomenal job, and that's
because he cares about the lore.
He's a huge nerd, but you don't like. There's not a single character in this show that I like anymore.
And just to go on Henry Cavill's thing, there are times when you look at the interviews with some of the other actors, they'll be in the middle of a scene and he'll be like, no, it's not like an elven.
Yeah, no, he corrects people on set all the time.
He's like, that's not how it's pronounced. It's pronounced like this. Or he's even gone into when they're editing and they're going into the edit. He's like, no. Let's use the line from this book on this page and this paragraph. And then what does he do? Like, he knows the books are really good. If you haven't read the books are pretty good. But he also knows the big fan base is coming from the video game, The Witcher 3. Yeah. That's a huge fan base. So what does he do? He goes and he plays it like he already did, but he said he played it like 3 or 4 times all the way through, did all these different endings and all that different, so he could get a feel for who Geralt was, and then he brings that love to the show, and it shows. So why haven't they done that with some of these Tolkien characters? There's nerds out there, there's actors out there, even no-name actors out there, or someone that you could find that loves the lore, or even a writer that loves the lore and brings that into it, and that makes a world of difference. And that's what you're seeing, for example, if I watched Andor, I know we'll get to, but that's what you're seeing with Andor. I'm very surprised. And you can tell the people who did Andor like Star Wars. You can tell they know what Star Wars is. Shocking, it's good.
Yeah, but they have shown us, the producers and showrunners of the Rings of Power have showed us that they don't like Tolkien fans. That's why they didn't look for Tolkien fans. It's like the same happened with the Resident Evil show from Netflix. Like they literally said that they were expressively not allowing people playing the games, people involved with the show, the actors and that shows, because nobody knows what the hell is going on, and nobody knows anything literally, not a single thing about the lore, the basic lore, which is not that complicated.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but just horrible things about the just slipped my mind, Resident Evil show. I saw one clip that made me laugh out loud, and
didn't they cancel it though? It's already canceled?
Oh yes, it was canceled before they finished airing the first season.
3 weeks after
hold on, sorry, hold on. This is awkward. I didn't tell Jared he was off the show.
Hey, what are you guys even doing here? Like, what? Try to bump me off? I mean, he's been gone for months. He's been gone for months. Just because he got married.
I don't know how you got.
Like he's like your cousin or something like that. Is this some...
David, did you email him the link?
Oh, I'm breaking my way in here. There's no way you're keeping me out of this.
Wasn't me.
This guy. Voice. I mean, just it's like it's some sort of nepotism or something like that. Just because he's like your cousin, like.
I'm like best Jared.
Jared-ration. Best Jared-ration. That's right. This is the best Jared. You got the OG. I'm no longer other. I'm the best Jared.
Wow.
I even graced
while I was gone. There was a lot of titles given that weren't necessarily earned, and okay, all right.
I even graced his wedding with my
Jared,
presence.
I don't know, Jared. I heard there was a couple of titles that have been earned this past few nights.
Speaking of, since Jared's back, I guess we can announce that memberships on the channel are live. I made them as cheap as possible. It's just $1 if you want memberships, and then you can get access to emojis and stuff. And there is one of them that is a pile of rocks. That if Jared says something stupid, you can throw them at him. But I only made one.
Jared, right?
I only made one tier. So there's only one. It's just $1. But if you want to give me more money, you can go to Patreon for higher tiers, because they don't take as much money as YouTube does. So there's that. Yeah. Also, with a membership comes a permanent 5% discount on all of my merch.
Why didn't you tell me that before I bought this merch?
Dude, I told you that I would buy a sample for you for half the price. And you...
No, that's all right.
You went and ordered them on your own. But yeah, we didn't really kick other Jared off. He was just late. What were we talking about? We kind of got sidetracked. We started talking about zombies for some reason.
Ranting about the Rings of Power.
We haven't even gotten into anything that happened in this finale.
Can I toss in some thoughts with Jared's stuff? I agree that, like, if I had been watching this without the negativity that I find quite a bit around the internet in general, not just you guys, trying to keep me out because of my positive views. No, I might would have been able to enjoy a lot of this, but the more that I look at it, to me, it doesn't even bother me as much the ways that they've twisted the lore, because I think a lot of it is those things that were not explicitly said. They're changing things, and it seems like for the most part, it's stuff that doesn't throw things off too bad, except for the timing and I don't know. There's some things that it's pretty bad. Right. But what bothers me the most is how poorly told the story is. How it's just all over the place. I kind of had this realization. I think it was last week or the week before, where it just is. It wasn't storyboarded out, and it's not edited well. So you're just jumping from scene to scene because they want to say, here's we want this scene and we want this scene, and we're just going to jump from this to this, and it doesn't connect. It's so messy and frustrating in that way. Yeah, so that's my biggest thing, and that's why, like, the way that this went with the whole, because they were trying to tease the stranger versus Halbrand as Sauron and who is who, and then within the one episode they say, oh, the stranger is Sauron. No, he's not. Like, you didn't give us that's not a good, interesting. That's not even a good mystery box. Like. You guys are too worried about your mystery boxes, but then you don't even do them well because you start out with, hey, maybe it's the stranger, and you're kind of building up to it. And if you wanted to leave us with that kind of a cliffhanger of you drop us at the end of this season with, oh, he's Sauron, and he starts going off with them, and maybe we don't see him for the first half of next season, and then you find out, oh, it's not Sauron, it actually is Halbrand.
Exactly. I don't think the concept of a mystery box is a bad thing. Mm-hmm. I think it can be done really well, and it can create really good stories. The problem is the answer has to be good, and it has to be set up well, so that when you finally get the reveal, you're like, of course that's what it was. You've been laying these clues the whole time.
Yeah. And even the Halbrand reveal was almost a solid one, because I feel like if they had just done the Halbrand reveal, that one I think could have been, but it was so messy with the rest of the stuff because you saw these little things of, like, he said he took it off of dead. Like, that one almost could have worked if it was on its own and wasn't muddled with all the other stuff going on.
The problem with the Halbrand reveal is that there are two options. It's either a stupid reveal or a stupid premise. And let me explain. Mm-hmm. If you go back and watch, yes, there are hints that Halbrand is Sauron. When you first meet him, he says looks can be deceiving, right? And he says, "Oh, I got it off a dead man." He never actually says the stuff that Galadriel puts on him, which is another issue which we need to talk about later.
And once he even becomes, they're bowing down to him, saying, "Hail to the King of the Southlands," he has that little smirk.
Yeah. Aside from that, though, the show continuously shows Halbrand doing good stuff. Mm-hmm. He's constantly helping people when Galadriel is not. Okay.
Right.
And he goes out of his way to avoid getting involved in this conflict. He just wants to stay in Numenor. And if you take that at face value and you're like, oh, he was evil this whole time, it completely contradicts the story. So that's option one, a bad reveal. Option two, a bad premise, is and this is what I think is actually going on. Mm-hmm. They are actually trying to say Sauron did nothing wrong. They are making him sympathetic.
Or at the very least, he starts out with sympathetic ideas and maybe goes,
he was genuinely trying to give up evil, and it is Galadriel's fault that all of this happens.
It was her rejection, right? That's why they say that they made Sauron an incel, because her rejection is going to
except that that's not what happened.
Make him really bad.
He was like, oh, it actually is me, and she rejects him once he reveals that it's him being bad and trying to twist things.
Okay. I mean, no, she rejects him when he says, like, be my queen and we're gonna rule.
Yeah,
whatever,
because he's already
there.
evil.
Then she says, you mean rule or to dominate, something like that, to unite or to heal or dominate.
And he says it's the same thing.
So is he? To me, that's not he goes bad because she rejects him. That's he is bad, and so she rejects him. I don't think that they're trying to say like he went bad because she rejected him.
That's the thing, though. If he was bad, then you have to say that he was planning this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to bring this up later, but it's come up now. So if Sauron was bad, this is his plan. Sauron didn't plan to get shipwrecked, got trapped on a raft, almost eaten by a worm twice. He didn't plan on meeting Galadriel, an elf who astonishingly just jumped out of her ship in the middle of the ocean. Then he didn't plan to be rescued by the Numenorians. He didn't plan to leave Numenor once he got there. He never even told Galadriel about this stolen symbol. That was something that she brought up. And he didn't plan to be thrown in prison. Then he didn't plan for Galadriel to convince Numenor to send an army to Middle-earth. Mm-hmm. And he didn't plan for the volcano to go off. And then he didn't plan to get stabbed by a lance and infected with a gut wound. He didn't plan on Galadriel taking him to Erygion and getting involved in the forging of the rings, which he didn't plan on injecting himself into until Celebrimbor brought it up.
Exactly.
Then he didn't plan on a grand scheme to seize power. He didn't even lie to Galadriel once. She orchestrated every single thing. And he was ignored, even when he tried to correct her and say, I'm not who you think I am. She kept insisting that she was right. He didn't plan on corrupting the rings. If you take it at face value, his explanation is he's actually trying to help. He didn't plan on assassinating Elrond or Gil-galad, which he's supposed to do. He didn't even plan on sabotaging the project after he's discovered.
Yeah.
Then he didn't try and kill Galadriel once his evil plan was revealed. He offered to her, "Hey, help me be good." That's what he was saying. I can be a ruler and you can be my anchor.
Yeah, I think he was trying to manipulate her there too, because he specifically says, I didn't do all these things to destroy Numenor, but to heal it, right? I think that was him being manipulative. But
how? The show wants you to think that he manipulated this whole situation, but he didn't do any of it.
You're right. That's what I was saying. I liked his political games here in this last episode, but it just came out of nowhere.
That's why I genuinely think that it's premise too. I think they are trying to show that he is trying to be good. And you know why? I also know this. This is new, and we're gonna have to skip to it. Here we go. What have they said about season 2? The Rings of Power showrunners say that Sauron will be like Walter White in season 2. So what does that tell you? I'm right. He's supposed to be a good guy who gets pushed into evil.
Who makes the wrong choices and just keeps falling over into bad things.
Sauron is supposed to be like Satan, basically. He's the fallen angel and the epitome of evil.
And you can do that
in this show. He's just misunderstood.
You can do that so much more interestingly. And they, again, to David's point, they almost thought about putting those pieces in there in this one, because it's like you set up somebody who they want something that they think is that even could be objectively perceived as the end result would be right, but they have the wrong way of going about it, and then they're misunderstood about their desires or whatever the case may be. That's a way you can do that, because you can look at the story of Satan as a fallen angel as, well, he just wants everybody to be saved, and so he thinks that this needs to happen this way, and he's going to force everybody to do it. And if you think that he's genuine about that, if you want to frame it that way, you can do that. But they didn't do that with him until this last episode. But it doesn't connect with what they did in any of the rest of the show.
And they're constantly showing him make good decisions. He saves Galadriel from drowning twice. Why would he do that if he was manipulating this? He doesn't need her.
Yeah.
He's a simp.
I mean, he does use her because she,
How though? He repeatedly tries to stop her, say no, I don't want to. How many times did he say, I don't want to leave Numenor? She forced him to.
And you can lay the ground.
No. And even I'm so right, because they even try and fake out the audience. Remember when she's talking to him and Halbrand is in the blacksmith. He takes his symbol, sets it down, and walks away, and then runs back for it. They show him. I'm so right.
No,
they show him struggling.
The problem
he is not evil. He's just misunderstood. Sauron did nothing wrong.
And you can look at it as though they're trying to say that this was all a part of his devious plan, but it's not it's not done right to
If that was the case, why would they show him setting it? He's alone. It's just him. He sets it down. Like, there's no other explanation.
Except that they also could be they did that just for the audience.
Exactly.
They did that to show the audience.
Stupid.
Absolutely.
That's stupid.
Absolutely.
Because the writers are stupid. If you are stupid, you think everyone around you is stupid. So the writers are stupid. They think the audience is stupid. And most of the audience that are chilling for this thing are probably stupid.
Yeah.
At some at some point.
Well, and just to add to the argument too, they had this big battle, right? Like literally, there was Morgoth and Sauron. So Sauron is Morgoth's.
He was a general, yes, in the army.
Mm-hmm.
In the army, right? And so literally, they have this huge battle against Morgoth, who is super evil, and they're trying to get rid of him. And Sauron's there, and then all of a sudden, we're expected to believe that he's good for some reason.
Well, he said his explanation is once Morgoth was defeated, it felt like I was free. Like, so he was like mind controlled the whole time, which it's stupid. It's not true. That's not canon. He could have been lying.
It was the Imperious curse.
This is a good question, though. If Sauron was penitent, then why was the tree dying? I think they are actually genuine in saying that it was the hatred inside of Galadriel that was making the tree die. They said they thought that's what it was.
I mean...
And you can go with an interesting story that might have to do with the hatred inside of somebody being a fuel for hatred in the world and causing problems, but that's not what they're trying to do too much with this show, and they're sucking at it, but they're also trying to do 10 things and not doing any of them well. Do 1 or 2 things well. Don't do 10 things awfully.
Yes, and if you want to do that,
Elendil has said the only good thing in the show is that he should have left her at sea.
Of cancer cure. Yeah.
Yes, that line was perfect. Yeah, but yeah, why? I agree that it might be a good trope to do the whole thing of hatred is it's a disease and it's infecting Middle Earth. But why the hatred of a character like Galadriel? Why her? Like she's not supposed to. Why her?
The only other reason that I doubt that is because they want her to be. They're trying to put her on a pedestal as this wonderful, amazing character, even though she's not.
This wonderful, amazing, extremely unlikable character.
They want to say that she is. So why would they end up make? It doesn't seem consistent with the idea that they would also make her the accidental villain, the one that accidentally caused the problem. If they're setting up the way that they set up, it doesn't work. Although I will say this, I wonder. I have a theory. Because we see Galadriel, she goes down and she's figuring out that Halbrand is not who she assumed he was, and he comes down and confronts her. And then there's the whole like vision quest thing that she goes on, where she's talking to her older brother again, and she's and then she's on the raft and everything, and she wakes up in the stream.
Yeah.
Do you think that's actually Galadriel?
Is it Sauron? Is she tied up? No,
I wonder if
it is, because they show Sauron at Mount Doom.
Yes, that's a problem.
Oh, that's right.
I thought that too. Is like, oh, did he shapeshift into her?
Into her.
Tied up in
a room somewhere? Because that would have actually like made sense.
That would have made way more sense. Well, because she then goes in, and I still don't get the logic behind what's. Because so she goes in and says, "No, let's make 3."
Jared, the problem is you are smarter than the writers. Okay.
The other problem with that is that the rings, the elven rings, are the ones that are supposed to be free from him.
Exactly.
And it was one of those things where they figured it out afterwards.
We've always said, look, I've tried to judge this show divorced of the lore and just judge it on its merits as a show in its storytelling. And I cannot do that because it's already failed at that front. So I really want to address the lore, because holy crap, this episode is an abomination to Tolkien lore. Okay. Sauron appears in the Second Age as Anatar, bringer of gifts, which is why they have that dumb scene where it says you can call it a gift, because I'm sure they don't have the rights to use the name Anatar. Otherwise, they'd be using it. Okay. So he shows up, and This isn't how any of this happened. He gradually taught the elves to make stronger and stronger rings of power. There were several rings of power that were made before any of the rings from the prequel or from the introduction to the Lord of the Rings movie, right? They got better and better at doing it. And they did silly things like, this turns on a hose or something, like lesser rings of power, right? So they got better and better at doing it. And but Anatar was responsible for bringing this technology of ring creation, okay? But it was tainted because he built a backdoor code into it, right? So when he creates the One Ring, and everyone who happens to be wearing a ring at the time gets cursed, okay? Like they literally hear him doing the incantation of the One Ring to rule them all. And I just, in the darkness, bind you. I just literally just bound all of you. And the one reason why his plan wasn't as successful as it should have been is because of Celebrimbor, who in secret forged the 3 elven rings. They were not connected to Sauron at all, other than using the idea of the technology. Okay, so the 3 bearers of those 3 rings still heard the incantation, but they knew that Sauron didn't have power over them. Okay, and this show contradicts all of that. Sauron was involved in the 3 rings that he wasn't involved with.
We haven't seen him make any other rings.
He wasn't.
Somehow these ones happened first. So they're flipping it on its head, where these ones were made from his idea, but maybe would be free of him, and then he starts going around and starts putting the other ones out. I don't know.
It was Celebrimbor's idea. Like Halron just says, "Hey, you're an experienced blacksmith. Have you ever heard of alloys?" What?
As a lover of
Celebrimbor is retarded in this show.
As a lover of puns, I wanted to love the title of the episode, like what was it, alloys, because it's like allies but it's like I wanted to love that pun because I love puns. I love Ask David. I love making terrible puns. Hannah and I both.
You do.
But yeah, I couldn't quite because it just, to your point. How the heck does Celebrimbor not know about alloys at this point? And then the way that they go about they're trying to create them with extra pressure, and then they're like, wait, we should do it with, and the amount of pressure that would have caused that explosion, everyone in that room would have been dead. The thing that would have caused those tongs to be fused to that whatever it was, everyone in there is dead.
Yeah. Also, like you guys tried to tell me that we were experiencing 2 different timelines, and I kept insisting
that was never my theory.
That the showrunners were idiots, and that was not the case because this is all the same timeline, which means that Celebrimbor's forge, this room that we're in this entire episode, was built in 2 weeks. What?
No, it was already
some Mexicans.
No, it was built by the dwarves, and that was after Galadriel leaves Lindon, goes to Numenor. Like the timeline is just shot to shreds.
But they said
traveled back and forth between Eregion and Khazad-dûm like 50
they warned
times.
us.
Got a bunch of dwarves back, created a whole tower. Also, what was special about the tower? It opened up at the top. That served nothing.
Yeah.
It was literally just a regular forge.
It was fresh.
They could have showed that, like, maybe like the power of, I don't know, maybe the Cimmeral that's in the sky helped with the forge. I don't know, maybe something, anything would have been better than that, but they just have this forge. It was necessary. They said, this forge is necessary for my creation. And it turns out Celebrimbor didn't even know what he was trying to create.
Yeah.
Yes. But remember that they told us,
like, we have a timeline. Like, that makes sense because, like, they were dying, but he was so clueless.
Yeah. They warned us about it. They warned us about it. They had an article where they were saying on an interview that they struggled really hard with managing the times because it was something that happened in a millennia. But But they didn't even manage a millennia. They managed a month.
And they didn't even do that well. They did that so poorly because of the way that, because even if it's not two different timelines, to your point, they do such a poor job of showing the progression of time.
It's proven in this episode. It's one timeline.
It's not just that. It's not
put up
just
two when
that.
I said one.
It's not just that, because to your point of, I don't think that they intended the fact that they didn't intend for Numenor, for people to travel from Numenor all the way across, sail up the whatever, ride all that distance in a matter of hours. I think that they meant that to have taken days or whatever, because they seem to have set up a camp at some point.
But they wrote these pieces. They wrote these pieces separately, and when they tried putting the puzzle together, they're like, "Oh crap, this is incoherent."
It was so garbage.
So then they just looked away.
So let me give an example. I was out visiting David the other week, and we watched that movie by M. Night Shyamalan, Old. Garbage movie, by the way.
It's terrible. Yeah.
Terrible dialogue. Don't watch it. It doesn't even really have a twist. It was awful. But that's another example of where they had
the aging happens in bursts. Yes.
And there was an example of they give a line. They show up on the beach. They find a dead body. They cover it up. And then
this is tangent number like 6, but go on.
they walk around for what seems like 5 minutes in. It seems like 5 minutes in movie even, and then they walk back, uncover her, and she's been completely like decomposed and everything. Yeah. And they're like, "We've been on this beach for only 3 hours. And you're like, there is no indication that the time even in movie was anything more than half an hour, and they say it was 3 hours, and you're like. It's the same sort of thing where they just tell you, oh, it's been 3 hours, but have given no indication of that progression of time. Same thing with Rings of Power. They don't show that there's been any, and you don't have to do a ton, but you have to you can even just a 30-second you can see this and just the way that you can lay it out. That's why you need to storyboard. You need to edit and film all the right things that you can put that in there.
You need just one person to look at your script and read through it. And they're
the problem is
to do that.
They did have that person, and that person was fired because he was the lore expert, and they fired him because he said, "Hey, you're butchering this." And that's why I think Rings of Power is worse, though, because they didn't show.
Stop pointing out the glaring mistakes in our writing.
I
know.
You
have to leave now.
And that's why we pointed this out before. They cut out all of the map transitions because otherwise it wouldn't make any sense.
Them in, it would fall apart.
Yeah.
And to your point from the article that you showed last week of the interview with them, where they're like, "We tried for 10 years to get stuff made, and everything was right. It just didn't happen." I believe that happens in Hollywood, where there's the right stuff and everything's right. It just doesn't happen. I believe it. Sure. This shows that was not the problem. The problem was you guys were
so
terrible
amazing. We had the right directors. Our scripts were we had the best scripts. For some reason we couldn't get any jobs. It definitely wasn't our fault.
Yeah,
they said that in an interview, Jared.
This has literally shown. Yeah, well, that's my point. Is you brought that up in an article last week.
Yeah, I was explaining it to
you were talking
Jared Bryan.
Other Jared.
It was probably the elves that took all their gerbs.
Yeah,
sorry. Yeah, that's what the. Oh my goodness!
Yeah. That pesky white people took the jobs.
That's why they're so bitter.
Oh,
so just stupid.
Oh man, so
I'm trying to get into my notes too. So it opens up with freaking. It's obviously Gandalf. We all knew it was Gandalf, even though it's physically impossible for it to be Gandalf because he doesn't show up till the third age.
But again, that's one of those things that I understand. Age, right? Yeah, exactly. That's one of those things, though, that I understand they have to condense stuff and move some timelines around.
Care.
But
I don't understand it, David. I'm done giving them the benefit of the doubt, and I don't give a rat's patoot. Okay?
Gandalf just was an excuse, to have a hook for the fans and they say, "Oh, Gandalf! The name."
Oh,
but
I can be okay with that. Okay. It can work, but they just they had to mystery box it with 6 other things and jumble it with 10 other stories.
So you get Gandalf and you get Slim Lady and her 2 besties, and for some reason, so it turns out that they have been hunting down Gandalf because they think that he's Sauron, right? Because he is a Maiar, or in this case, more specifically, an Istari. But they didn't know that. They thought he was just the Sauron, which, if you take at face value, is retarded because Sauron has been on Middle-earth this whole time, fighting a war! So why would... And they saw... Their first clue was that he fell from the sky. Why would that be Sauron? If moving along, they chase him down and then pretend to be Nori for why?
For the
to
reveal.
ambush him, but they're trying to help him because the only reason is David. It's for the audience. They needed to show us that she can shapeshift too, and it looks cool. Okay, it's bull crap.
Oh my,
it's so bad.
So she shapeshifts and then is acting extremely sinister because twist, we want to serve you because we think you're Sauron, and then they try. Oh my goodness, it's not Gandalf. It's he's been Sauron this whole time, and Nori likes him. Oh no. So then they tie him up.
Because they're like, oh, you don't know right now, so we're going to torture you into being yourself.
Gosh. Well, that's a great point. Sorry, continue.
I was just going to add that, like, if they went down that route, I was kind of getting bugged at the idea that they were going to. I'm trying to remember exactly how I was looking at it, but I'm like, that you're going to say that Sauron was this sweet, innocent stranger that was then tortured into being correct. Like, it was a different angle on that same idea of he did nothing wrong and it was all somebody else's fault.
If he was Sauron, is this how you treat your boss?
Yeah.
Got to torture him into being his bad self.
Yo, but what you say was such a good point about why would Sauron be following this little girl? Like, why would the lady Eminem change into Nori?
She could just walk up to him and say, "Hey, I'm here to serve you." There's no reason to trick him.
Yep.
They say, "Hey, you can't remember crap. I can fix that. Hey, you're Sauron. Oh crap, you're not." That would have made more sense.
By the way, in the chat, I really like my Feminem, but the someone in the chat, the Honey Bun, mentioned Nazgirls is another good one.
The Nazgirls.
Ooh, that's good.
Well, the Nazgirls are her backup dancers. It's Feminem and the Nazgirls.
Yo, I have a question about the lore. This is a serious question.
Yeah.
Does
the answer is the answer to your question is I have no freaking idea because it's stupid. But go on, ask your question.
Does the Nazgûls have nice racks? Sweet racks.
Yeah, apparently the Nazgûl already exist or something. I don't like. They're not Nazgûl, but they've touched the shadow plane. I can't remember what it's called. The undying lands or whatever it's called. The ethereal plane, right?
Yeah.
But oh gosh, it's so freaking dumb. And then they keep getting distracted by rocks. And then they pretend to tie up Gandalf, but then they actually tie up Feminem for another fake out
to trick the
for reasons. But
to
why
trick the
would
Harfoots because they want?
They are magic boys. Why do they care about the Harfoots? They should only care about Sauron. If the other people show up, they can just burn them.
And they left Sauron hanging, just
knocked out in the.
They even say hey, until he remembers who he is, he could be dangerous. So that's why we need to tie him up. And then they don't do that, and that ends up being their undoing.
And
because they didn't tie him up.
Again, each of the pieces, some of those pieces are almost cool. Like the transformation, the sinister look, and the transformation on each of those was kind of cool if you were to take it by itself.
It's not a bad idea, and for one panel in a comic book, it would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's my comparison. It's a Zack Snyder movie.
Yeah.
But they, like I said, they are trying to build a story on a cool idea, a cool power. They
But
are
they're not
cool
even
power,
connected
shape
yet.
shifting. But why they are so creatively bankrupt that they don't know to add more bold powers? Sauron have the shape shifting abilities, and Feminem as well have the shape shifting
But
abilities.
she can also do fire.
And she can also throw fire, do something with her fingers. I don't know why her fingers are so
And
dirty.
she can also do the thing with the staff that they
Wash
do
your hands, baby. Wash your hands.
There was that bit right before she picked up the fire because I think it was she was stalking towards Gandalf and then she's got distracted by like rocks being thrown at her, and you see she's just in shadow, right? There's no fire, but she walks another step forward and turns, and there's the fire that they had been using earlier. It wasn't there, but suddenly it's there because they did not line that out. They did not keep the reality of the space at all.
Exactly. Also,
when
you
she
know
gets
how
that fire,
she lost the fight because she set her staff down, right? What do you remember in the previous episode? The first time she used her fire powers, did she do it? How many hands did it require?
2. No,
it was just one.
One.
One. The Hobbit,
the first time she did it with one
the
hand
fire,
and was holding on to her staff. And this time she has to set it down so that plot can happen. So she uses both hands.
Yeah,
you're right.
That's the only reason.
Because this one, she's breathing fire.
Would not think of a clever reason to steal the staff from, a clever way for the Harfoots to show their ingenuity and steal the staff from her. So they had to have her set it down.
Sadok being stabbed ended up not having any effect on anything in that fight because suddenly he's just kind of walking around being totally fine until the end of the fight when he decides to say he wants to sit and watch the sunrise.
Also,
closes his eyes.
As
soon as it starts.
That's a really
also,
good.
didn't her parents come too? Like, didn't her parents say, "Hey, we're coming with you"?
It was the mom.
Her mom did, yeah.
Poppy, I think. Mom,
Dad's,
Poppy.
The dad
and
stayed behind because he
Sadok.
still has an injured leg. But
Okay,
Sadok Burrows, Poppy, and the mom showed up.
Where was he the whole time?
And then Sadok
He was
Burrows
back with
took a
the
knife
other
to the
ones.
chest, and I
Relaxing.
cheered. It was the best moment of the show.
Yeah,
and then
but-
he's still alive for some reason, and he
finds a
stabs the
completely he finds a convenient space to
Yo,
hide, and then he
that-
gives away his hiding spot and stabs him in the foot.
again.
Yeah.
Because they're
That's
Harfoots,
what-
they like stabbing food.
Oh, they're Harfoots. Yeah.
Is Quentin Tarantino a Harfoot because he likes feet?
Probably.
You got a foot fetish.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know why. This is the second time in the show too. When Bronwyn comes and surprises the orc, he stabs him in the foot both times.
For no
they
reason.
clearly
Like,
have
she
an
could've just killed him.
advantage.
It's very
They have an
non-lethal.
advantage on these people, and they
And
stab him in the
they
foot.
know how to
Yeah,
kill
that's
people, the Harfoots are psychopaths, and Bronwyn. Oh my god, Bronwyn is a warrior.
I am curious of what they were supposed to be hinting at with her when Gandalf blows them away and they look like the Witch
Turning
King.
to
He's got like
moths.
well, and so yeah, but they're not the Nazgul. The
I-
Nazgul are the
I know that, Jared. They don't.
and then if you even
The
take
show is
within
made for dum-dums.
if you even take it within their own consistency, what does the moth have to do with that? Because that ends up being a Gandalf thing, but that's not an evil thing.
Those are
It's a
the
good
moths,
thing.
Those are the moths that
Did-
Gandalf uses to summon the eagles.
Did he turn Feminem into the summoning moth?
Yeah.
Turned this evil thing into a thing that is going to help him summon good things.
Yeah.
What? No.
Exactly.
But it's just like, look, the moths.
It's called
look,
an
Gandalf
Easter
doing the
egg,
moth
you
thing.
idiot.
Mhm.
It's cool. You remember the moths?
It visually looked kind of interesting.
Yeah,
Sure,
I need a
cool, right? But
You know what would have been better is if, as he was turning them into moths, he said, "Fly, you fools." That
Or he'd
would
been
have
like-
been better.
I definitely would have hated that even more.
See, but that's the thing is I can love hating that because it's just like, that's like so grown worthy. Like,
also they couldn't do that. They couldn't do that because it would ruin the reveal later when he says, "I like to smell things." That means I'm Gandalf.
Yeah, he said, "Follow your nose."
Oh yeah,
they were so that's how we know it's Gandalf because he says the same thing in the Fellowship of the Ring when they're in Khazad-dûm.
Yeah,
he said,
that's how
the air smells less foul. You can if all else fails, trust your nose.
Trust your nose. Yep, follow your nose.
Yep.
Well, the whole thing too with like why does the Harfoot go off with Gandalf? Like
I don't know. They give no reason. Exactly. It's because it needs to happen, Jared.
Exactly.
They don't give a reason. They don't give a reason for her to need to go with him. They also don't give a reason why her best friend wouldn't want to go with her. And they it's just there so they can have this tearful goodbye with sappy music playing. And I was laughing the entire time. So I was like, do they think this is going to make people cry?
Yeah, and it's immediately
They milked it for so long too. That ending was as long as the Return of the King, and people are going to be bawling their eyes out, and no one cares about the Harfoots.
Yeah,
and it's also it's immediately after she says, "I've had enough adventure. I don't want to wander off the trail anymore."
Yep.
And then she turns around, and her father is like, "Hey, get out of here! You should go with him." It's like, what?
Yeah. They're just so all over the place with this thing.
The Harfoots
don't know what they want to do with it.
Yeah.
I was making the joke that the father Harfoot tells his daughter that, "No, you have a long life already. Go and die in the woods." Yeah, they just wanted to do the Frodo, that's all they wanted to do. They wanted to do, we have a female Frodo because a female did it first than the Frodo male, and then they wanted to do the Sam goodbye.
Sam to go with him though,
because they wanted to do the same goodbye scene that they have in, I think it's Return of the King. I don't know if this Return of the King or the.
Of course, I'm coming
at the end. That's a copy of the same scene. Like you have a chubby guy crying or chubby girl. I don't know what that guy girl. I don't even know what half of the sexes of the characters are. Yeah. Feminism got me conflicted, mate.
Yep.
No, I cheered when Sadek died. Well, when he got hit. Later, it was just like, it was cringy to watch when he actually died.
I didn't even mind that. That was fine. It was a little funny that he was like, "I want to watch the sunrise," and
that's hilarious.
And then he just closes his eyes as soon as the sun comes up.
And the sun just up. He says, "It's pitch black." He says, "I want to watch the sunrise." Boom! It's daytime.
Yep.
It wasn't even like it wasn't even dawn. They showed how high the sun was. It was like,
yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, I thought I saw something where he looks over at Gandalf's and can we do that? And Gandalf's like, yep. And then Gandalf's like, all right.
that's what it was. That was good, dude. Alan, yep, that was good. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, that was weird.
I can't heal you. I can't heal your stab, but I can do this. The sun will come out.
Because I'm good
right now.
I'm good. We forgot about the "I'm good" the scene.
Oh my god.
Oh my freaking god.
Oh my god. I'm not Sauron. I'm good. I was trying to think of there's. Oh, you can't find the membership tab. It should be active. I don't know. I've never done.
I can see it right there next to the subscribe button, so it should be there. I took a screenshot and I was gonna figure out. I couldn't figure out how to share it with you though.
So. It's the button that says join. I don't know if that helps.
Just
below the join button.
Join.
Yeah.
Although I wonder, does it make any difference on are you on mobile or on computer? Still should be pretty visible, but
yeah, and I think you have to be subscribed before you can.
Oh, yeah, Mark's been subscribed for.
Maybe you can make a
post later.
You can make a community post later about it. Take a screenshot.
Yeah, I will.
But hell yeah, I'm good.
I am good. I was trying to think. I was trying to think. That reminded me of I was like, oh, I've got to put that in my meme edit, and it reminded me of a scene from something, but it's on the tip of my brain, and I can't remember what it was from. One of those Oscar bait ones like that. I'm not Jenny.
And the previous right before that, he says something like "Return to the shadow from what you came from," and I was like, oh, that's just like a cheap copy of the Balrog speech, you know. Like I was expecting
that line. Yeah, that line would have been okay, like if they told you where these people came from previously. And he says, "Go back to the shadow." Oh, hey, then it's
where's
an
that
Easter egg.
specifically? You know, we don't know who these people are. I mean, we guess that
we know nothing about them.
They look like Nazgûls, but that doesn't make any sense.
And the other thing is, you were asking earlier, Jared. I don't know if it was Jared that was saying it or if it was you guys were just talking about like the Balrog that they just kind of teased. It's because they just want to tease and try to get us all excited for the next season.
Yep.
But So and I'm sure the next couple seasons they're going to show him giving rings to other people and whatever. But
yeah, but I think we are finally done with the Harfoot story. You know, I don't think we are following the Harfoots, just Nori and Gandalf. Just Frodo and Gandalf. Yeah, I mean that's a relief for me. Like the Harfoots, I hope they die. I hope they perish.
I don't even care. The Harfoots were. I didn't even hate them any more than the rest of the show. But Letty has a comment about here about they spent so much time and money setting up those stupid Harfoot shots because of the size differences, but they didn't because they're.
Right.
Yeah, I'm working on the video. Okay, there is one shot where they do forced perspective well. I'm not even sure that it is forced perspective. It's the first. There's a shot with him kneeling down and Nori. It's in like episode 1 or 2. There is one good shot with like, okay, this is executed well, but every other shot it's not done well. And I'm working on it. It takes a lot of work. Okay, I'm busy.
And it's
like
not even
on the fact that they are pretending like they just take the actual heights of the characters, because there was a scene where they were literally sitting next to each other on the hill and there wasn't a big height difference or anything like that, but there was a little bit of one, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, I don't think this is a forced perspective sort of thing. I think that's just she's a small person
and he's on stilts. Yeah,
but it was they were sitting so you could see their whole bodies too. So
she's tiny. You know, Irel, she's tiny. She's like 5'3", 5'2". You know, she's a tiny person. She's tinier than Bronwyn, I believe.
Yeah, and it's the sort of thing where it's like I feel like they just leaned on the sizes of the actual actors, way more than they. Yeah. Anyway,
but even when they try and do forced perspective, it's garbage. There's just a one shot where it worked out well, and it was in the first 2 episodes, which were filmed separately. They did the first 2 and then went on hiatus because of COVID and came back.
And the thing is,
that makes sense. Those
the
are
height difference. The height difference across the show is not even consistent.
Mm-hmm. No,
because you'll see several times when they just put the other actors lower, on a.
But their proportions are the
something
same.
like that. But their proportions are the same.
Is going to be this.
There's only a couple shots, like in the last one of the last episodes when Nori hands her the apple. They're both in the screen, their whole entire bodies, and it's like, oh, that's the height difference that you were trying to convey this whole time, because it did not come across in any of the other shots.
Okay. So before we move on from the Harfoots, though, there's still a couple things that were stupid, like when they sneak up on Feminem and the Nazgûls. They're hiding in the trees like 2 feet away, and it cuts to them, and they start arguing at full volume.
Yeah, I thought that too. I was like, what the?
Like it shows you the distance. Like it shows them peeking. Like it shows the Nazgûls, and then it shows like the bush move, and you're like, we've been spying on you. And then it cuts to them, and they're talking in full volume. I'm like, oh, retarded. Then they lure away the 2 sisters by making an owl hoot. They're in nature.
Yeah.
Why would that draw anyone away?
And the only reason it did is because they actually had heard them and knew there were people there, and so the owl sound was not a thing.
They haven't shown us any animal apart from the horses, so maybe maybe the showrunners are so stupid that they don't have animals in Middle Earth. So
we don't have owls in
they
Middle
legitimately were. Surprised. What is that weird sound coming from from nowhere.
Like, why would that's not like? Oh my gosh, it's an
No,
owl.
but for real,
Like if
they
they
haven't
were
shown us
actually looking for an owl,
any animal,
what would they
any
expect?
animal apart from the horses. Like
It's gonna fly away if they find it, and what would they do if they catch an owl? Why would they care about an owl?
Yeah.
And then when there's a bunch of dagger throwing, there's a scene where not Nori. Who's the other chick's name? The Pennywise Gamgee. Not Sam. Oh well, she gets a knife stuck through her clothes.
Yeah,
and she's
I
stuck.
just had it a minute ago, but
right, she gets pinned with a knife, but
Poppy. Yep.
She's wearing rags. Like you could just go like this with no force and be free. Also, it's a knife. You could cut your it's.
It's not even a knife. It's like a boomerang.
Even if it
so
wasn't
you can
a knife,
just take it out. You can just take it out. It's like a boomerang, so you can just take the cloth out.
Exactly.
And, like,
but even if it wasn't a
no
knife,
handle.
she could just tear her clothes because they are so thin. It's like you see in the shot. It's like silk. Or not silk because it's not nice. But you can see through the cloth.
It's very sheer. Cloth, yeah.
No, but if they get rid of that cloth, they die. Like they have nothing left. They have no cars because the Feminems Nazgals set them on fire. They have no. In the last shot of the episode of the Harfoots, they are walking, on foot. And they have nothing literally, and I'm like, they're gonna die, they're gonna perish because they have nothing. They spend the whole season talking of how everything they were carrying was so fundamental for their survival, and now that they have nothing, they are just like, no, we're just gonna walk into the woods. We're not gonna build any houses or build more carriages or build anything or carry more food or find more food or anything.
Yeah.
But and then you have Poppy giving like that emotional pep speech to Gandalf, and it's so dumb. It's just word salad. Yeah,
because she says, "Did you forget your firelight?" Something like that. And I'm like, "Do you guys?" But I saw it in Spanish because I was looking for I was doing the video and I didn't want for subtitles to go. And I was looking at it in Spanish and I was like, they say linterna, which is flashlight. So did they say the same thing in English?
No.
Flashlight? No, what
no,
did
they said
say?
Fire.
Firelight or fire.
Oh.
When she's looking at her
backpack.
Go back. Yeah, she's looking at her backpack and she's like
at the very end. This is after the fight scene.
Yeah. After
she says, you forgot your lantern.
Yeah, lantern. Yeah. That. So they have lanterns? What?
Yeah, they have lanterns that are filled with fireflies. That are filled with thousands of fireflies. Remember when they
keep alive? Like, how did they keep them alive?
I don't know, but apparently it takes 1,000 fireflies to light one of the lanterns, and it shows them with like hundreds of them. So,
Jesus.
Man.
I gotta admit,
but she says only you can say who you are, right? They can't tell you that you're bad because you're good. You can only show what you are inside by you can show it by showing the thing that it is that you are, and that's when he says, "I'm good." It's so dumb.
Yeah.
But the Harfoot, the 18-year-old Harfoot is wiser than the study. Yeah, he's only like, I'm good. That scene was like, I was cracking up. Like, there's no way they.
And then when Sadek Burrows is dying, like he looks fine, and I just kept thinking like, oh, he looks incredibly healthy for someone about to die. Maybe he should ride on horseback 5,000 miles and he'll get better.
Yep.
So
and it's funny because they have Halbrand. Halbrand looks just as bad as he left the camp, the Numenorian camp, because in the Numenorian camp he's sweating, like he's struggling, like he's sweating. He has the big bags under his eyes, and he has red eyes. So I'm guessing he's struggling because of the wound, losing blood, high fever, whatever. Then he rides this, and then he arrives, and he's a little bit better, but somehow he's like knocking out, and it makes no. Were they performing surgery on him? Was he on their medication, on their anesthesia?
Elven drugs, yeah.
Well, there's a throwaway line where they say it took 6 days to ride there, and you're just like,
and I rode straight for 6 days because that wouldn't kill the horses.
No,
not to mention
in
riding
full
with your
armor
would have been awful. And also the fact that like he looked awful when he left and shouldn't have been able to stay upright. So, but they show him riding off at the beginning, at the end of last episode. But then there's the scene where she's riding in, and you can see him over her shoulder, and he's just kind of like collapsed on the horse. You're just like,
gone.
He's dead. He's just dead. He just died on the horse there, apparently. Because
oh gosh, they should have put him in a cart that was pulled by the horse or something like that. But
yeah,
I mean, I guess
it's just illogical.
Yeah, I did like
maybe
in your
Sauron powers. I don't know.
Maybe. Well,
was the injury fake? I don't know.
Maybe he did it to himself.
Plan all along.
No, that wouldn't make sense because then they actually heal him, and they would have said, "This isn't. He's faking, guys." Like,
and he's sweating. Like, why do you put his sweating like a pig? Oh, I mean, pigs don't sweat, but
Yeah. Also, gut wounds can take like a week to kill you. By the way, when you're not riding horseback. In Static's case, right? Like he took a gut wound, like that can take a long time to kill you, unless it's got sepsis and you're riding on horseback, that'll kill you instantly.
Or unless you're stabbed by a Nazgul blade.
It's because of the internal bleed. Like you can stop the bleeding, but you'll still be bleeding internally, and you will die eventually. But
don't worry about hemorrhages because Bronwyn still up and around somehow.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
What happened?
Bronwyn it would be bleeding internally as well. Yes.
And here's another example of
that, and that goes nothing to say for the second arrow that just disappeared.
Yes.
And this goes back to the fact that I think that they at least had in their head that this is sort of taking a longer time than that because they have Halbrand and he's so sick that he's out cold and they're healing him, and then like the next scene they show him wandering into the forge, and then he's starting to actually work on the forge. So it's like that should have taken a month by itself. And I think that they probably would think, oh, yeah, that probably took a month. But they show nothing to give us a feeling that took anywhere close to that long.
The whole point of them going, like, he promised he'd come back to the Southlands, right? And Galadriel promised she'd do that. And then they just completely forget about the Southlanders the second they get to Irigion, and they just start, let's start making rings, guys. Like,
I did love
the whole thing was like, we gotta come and we'll come right back. We promise, because there's things happening in the Southlands. They don't care.
I did love in your edit where you call out, he's like, how Elrond asked her, how are you here? And she's like, how are you here?
I'm supposed to be here.
Why would he not supposed to be? Why?
Yeah.
Where do you expect him to be?
In an elf city, you were supposed to be in another continent.
Yeah. And
look, I asked you first. Like,
yep.
Oh gosh, that was so good. But that was an example of, I think, what like David was saying, where like they tried to be clever, but like that was literally the schoolyard equivalent, like the equivalent of the schoolyard. Like, I know you am, I know I am, but what am I? Or I know you are, but what am I? Or whatever. Like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's incompetent.
What's the story? The other storyline that
the Numenorians. So they're sailing back, and it doesn't make sense. They're still trying to go with the whole, like, I need to pretend I'm not blind with Queen Muriel. They have her practicing the steps in the boat. And then the next scene is her above board with a freaking blindfold on again.
And not like, just that.
Like, how stupid. Like, they don't even know what story they want to tell.
And not just that, but they very very out in the open are having him help her like she can't see, and it's like
it
I'm
sounded
thinking
to
that
me
they're
like
trying.
it sounded to me like everyone in the boat knew, but they were trying. Once they got home, they were going to try and pretend like she could still see, because he was saying it's this many steps, and you miscounted the steps. Don't anyone know you're blind, and then I'm going to cover my eyes. Like none of it makes sense.
I kept thinking that maybe, and this doesn't really work at all, but I'm trying to like find something to make it kind of work. I'm not trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm just trying to find something that could make it work for me in any way, shape, or form. But it's like maybe they're trying to say that there's an injury that they're pretending like it won't be permanent, so that later once she's used to things, she can take it off and can pretend to walk around as if she can see. But that is kind of just dumb anyway, and it's just unnecessary. And I'm
the whole dialogue with her,
real hard.
The whole dialogue with her asking, "What do you see? What do you see?" So dumb. Like, what do you expect? What do you expect him to see?
Like, but she's wearing the blindfold in the city too. Like, it's not just they're. I don't know what they're even trying to say. And then with her daddy, we finally get like some story connected to Isildur's sister, who's just in the story for some reason, and the reason was so she could draw a picture of Tarmiriel's dad, and so he could send her up to the Palantir room, but it leads to nothing.
I mean, it is
but they're teasing us. It's a cliffhanger, Alan. They want us to be excited about something because it's a mystery box.
Also, she's shouting for guards in the king's room, and you don't have a guard next to your king?
Yeah. Probably in the room, if not right outside the freaking room.
How many guards are they assisting Viserys when he's sick? Like, just the Viserys is as sick as the king in Númenor.
I can't wait to start talking about House of the Dragon, because
we gotta wrap this up, because
this is a great example of the difference between those two shows.
Here's the thing. So this show ends with like 20 minutes of them trying to sap you to get you to cry, right? With the music is manipulative, and I'm saying goodbye, but you don't care about any of these characters, and there's no good reason why they have to leave. She just says, I'm gonna go because. So they're trying to be emotionally manipulative, but they're so incompetent that it does not work. And I was laughing the entire time. Freaking House of the Dragon has a scene where an old guy sits in a chair, and I was bawling my eyes out the entire time. It was so freaking good. I was like, this is so much better than Game of Thrones. Like, I didn't know that I was invested in this story as much as I am, but I was bawling.
When he walks up to the throne, my God, they had to give him an Emmy for that scene. Just that scene. It's like, and you're like, your heart is racing.
And then he trips,
expecting him to trip. Oh my God.
Okay. And the way Daemon comes to help him
when Daemon freaking shows up, I literally lost it.
To actually help him
scene
to
was
the throne.
freaking improvised. That was not in the script. He actually tripped and dropped his
freaking
crown,
Matt
and
Smith.
Matt was like, this is what my character would do. That is what happens when you have competent writers who give you a character that could exist in real life.
And then actors that can work with that too.
Can make choices that don't exist in the script because their character is so fleshed out. They can make a choice like that, and when you see it on screen, you're like, of course that, like, there's no other way that this could play out. It's so true to character. But Rings of Power, there was no internal consistency. If anyone tried to improvise on set, it would just equal another regular scene of stupid things happening for no reason, because the actor who played Sauron didn't even know he was playing Sauron until the end.
Yep.
They did an interview with him.
I mean, the character didn't even know like who were there making an audition for?
And here's
Like,
another example of the just wild difference in how good House of the Dragons is versus this one. In the parallel scene of you have an old dying king trying to communicate something to somebody who's there, and it's the wrong person. The king in this one communicating to Isildur's sister, and she's like, "Oh, what's going on?" And we have no idea what the whole point of this is, and you're just like, "Oh no, he died." As opposed to the way that the House of the Dragon ended, with him telling Alicent and her totally misunderstanding that because he's trying to finish the conversation with Rhaenyra. Oh my gosh! And how that twists everything that happened with that whole season, that whole episode. Oh, it was so good. Yeah. I will not spoil it. You're right. But,
with this show, even if you get spoiled, even if you get spoiled with House of the Dragon, holy, like the experience is not ruined because the spoiler is not even the main point of the episode.
The scene that we were talking about wasn't like a thing that happened in the show. It was just like a line of dialogue and a character interaction. It wasn't an event, but it was so powerful that.
And again, just looking at the parallel of like the similarities between those and the vast difference in how much more powerful and more impactful and more interesting and more important that scene is in House of the Dragon compared to how confused and you're just like, what's the point? Why? What's going on? Where are we doing?
But also compare our societal context between these two shows. House of the Dragon is coming off of the worst finale of all time. People hated Game of Thrones, and everyone was saying, I don't even know if I'm going to watch the new show. Okay? And they're both prequels. They're both telling, we've already talked about how similar these two stories are, other than tone, which is vastly different. Okay? Well, except Rings of Power is trying to be edgy too, so I don't know. But like they're telling the exact same story, and one was playing at a massive disadvantage, and the other, like,
fresh and new.
People love Lord of the Rings. People love the films. Like it had every single possibility.
The Hobbit were bad, but
the best. It had $1 billion. And going into both of these, I expected I would hate both of them. And I've been so wrong about House of the Dragon and so right about Rings of Power.
Exactly.
It is insane.
And I don't know if it's the best marketing strategy for House of the Dragon to be, matching the daytimes, the release times with.
It came out 2 weeks before, and they're going to be going for 2 weeks after Rings of Power. And
it's still
no one will remember Rings of Power.
And think too about what kind of CGI, because they had beautiful shots of where is it called, New Zealand, and there's a couple of different. I'm talking about with Rings of Power.
They barely used New Zealand.
They barely used it. Like what? The costumes are fine. A lot of the costumes are fine. I'd even say 80% of the costumes are fine. The 20% they mostly hide, so I don't even notice it 90% of the time I'm watching.
Take away the special effects for House of the Dragon, and it would still be a good story.
It would still be a great story, but then also look at the House of the Dragons and the CGI
on those dragons. It looks better.
Oh my gosh, it looks so good.
And it's a fraction of the budget.
Spent a freaking $1 billion on this property, and still somehow have 2 more episodes than Rings of Power. What?
Yeah. It's more than 2.
Well, it's because they've got 10 episodes for House of the Dragon, and there's only 8 for Rings of Power, right?
Yeah.
But so it's like, gosh.
Yeah, but thank God we have the House of the Dragon. That's the only good that's the only good thing we have gotten out of media for the past 2-3 years, something like that. And like you said, it comes from the worst finale in history, and the Rings of Power came with such a good hand. I was talking to friends that are not involved with Twitter and and the whole, and they didn't hear any of the interviews where the cast were saying, oh, diverse people of color, whatever, no, and they didn't know any of that, so they were really excited about Rings of Power. They are Tolkien fans, they are Lord of the Rings fans, and they were like, there's no way this is bad. It's Lord of the Rings, you know? I mean, Game of Thrones can be bad, but it also can be great. And it shows how good can TV go. You know, I thought TV was dead. Well, you can call it TV. They
streaming
series.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. TV.
Yeah.
I thought TV was dead but House of the Dragon bring it back to life, literally.
And they have gained viewers every single week. They are growing. And Rings of Power has only dropped every week, except there might this finale might have some fudge to numbers. I don't know if you watched Shad Brooks talk about it. I didn't experience this because I have a bunch of ad blockers on my computer, but they were apparently running ads during the finale that kicked you out. So you had to click on it again, which counts as 2 views. That's insane.
Well, and it's a finale, and they're even.
Why would you kick someone out of your show, though?
Yeah. And well, that's the thing too. Is I would imagine even if you've been losing people would probably come back around to start watching the finale to be like, all right, let me at least finish this thing out, even if I'm not watching it as it airs anymore. I'm just gonna let me finish it and see what's going on. Yeah.
I think we've covered most of the stupid stuff. I have a couple more notes though.
Yeah,
and they're just about how stupid Galadriel is. Well, first off, when Farazan is doing his exposition, it's one of those scenes where the only reason he's talking is for the audience because they're talking in the king's quarters. So to summon the people there, they would have already had to hear the story to be summoned, right? But he's as we all know, the king is dying, right? So Galadriel becomes suspicious of Halbrand because of something that Celebrimbor says.
Yeah,
because he says the whole mastery over flesh, and for some reason that makes her suspicious of Halbrand, not Celebrimbor, because she's been championing Halbrand this whole time. And
the thing, sorry. The thing that Celebrimbor says is that he had the key that opened up the dam. And that was the reason that
he said Halbrand talked to me and it gave me the inspiration. He had the key that opened up the dam. But even that isn't like a good reason to suspect Halbrand, because Halbrand wasn't like involved in that plot at all. Halbrand was with Galadriel in Númenor and then showed up and the key thing happened. He didn't know anything about the key. He tried to stop the key.
And you saw nothing of Halbrand doing anything with Celebrimbor that would have brought him to be in a position where he's like, "Ooh, we want power over flesh."
So for some reason, Galadriel's character just completely flip-flops and is suddenly suspicious of Halbrand, this person that she's been pushing this whole time. And then she finds out that the Southlands have not had an heir for 1,000 years. But for some reason, she assumed he was the heir because he had a little pouch. And everyone in the Southlands did too.
Yep.
They said, "Are you the heir? You know, the one that we haven't had for 1,000 years?"
The one we were promised.
Yeah. The king, the prince we were, the king we were promised.
By who? By Sauron? By Mordor?
Well, I was making a Game of Thrones reference. Was promised.
Yeah.
The prince that was promised. But it's so it just shows how stupid Galadriel is.
Yeah.
When it first happened, I was saying the same thing. Why is she just assuming that he's the king of the Southlands? He did nothing to make her assume that. And they explained nothing to the audience that would have made her assume that. And then you find out that there hasn't been an heir for 1,000 years. And it's just, she's just a moron.
Yeah. And the document in the Numenorian library or whatever, the document that said that symbol was the one of the king of the Southlands didn't say that this hasn't been a king for 1,000 freaking years. And how many? Oh my god! And Galadriel
this is great.
Galadriel
Sauron
is
the Deceiver is the most honest person in the show.
Yep.
Yeah,
dude. No way. Like yes, and Galadriel is 4,000 years old to this point, right? Something like that, and she doesn't remember 1,000 years of like. Did she disappear for 1,000 years, or why wouldn't?
What's funny is, it supposedly she had a change of heart last episode, and because she said she was going to do a genocide on Anatar, but then when things went bad, she talked to
Adar, not Anatar.
She talked to sorry. They can't use Anatar.
That's right. They can't use.
They don't have the rights. Adar.
That's the only reason I bothered.
So then she was talking to the emo kid and just had a day and night switch of, oh, I'm good now, and I realized that I was being bad, and that you don't want to be obsessed with anger, with killing, because there can even wars are fought from within and without, and even bad guys can be kind of good. And then she flip flops again when Halbrand reveals his identity as Sauron, and like I'm on his side, like. He's done nothing but good so far in the show. And she immediately says, he says, I want to help you. And she says, I want to kill you. He says, I can be your salvation and I will be your destruction. Or so, I can't remember the specific line, but she's like, it's the scene where she's screaming and it's super cringy and it's retarded. But then afterward, when she's talking to Elrond, and she doesn't know if it's really him or Sauron, she gets him to say, hey, what was the thing that we said when we were kids?
Yeah.
Except that the show has already demonstrated one scene prior that is a bad metric. Because what does Sauron do? He says the thing that only her brother would have known.
But I was
so
wondering.
Why is she using that as a litmus test?
Because she's actually
so
Sauron.
moronic.
I was wondering. I was wondering because his brother said something, and then she kind of knew he wasn't her brother, because my guess is that instead of darkness, instead of saying touch the darkness, something like that, instead of that, her brother probably said touch the light or something, have a taste of the light. Or no?
But
he says.
No,
I don't think
it was like slightly abbreviated, but he said the same thing.
Oh, he said the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that I'm confused about is didn't they not show us what he said?
What was his
Your brother said sometimes you have to touch the darkness to see the light, and he said sometimes you have to touch the darkness. He literally quoted her brother.
And then at the end he said, "Touch the darkness again." Yeah.
Then it doesn't make any makes any.
It's not different. It's not different. It's the same.
What the hell? Oh, what the hell?
Taste the darkness.
Taste the
rainbow.
You want to touch my darkness? Ooh.
Yeah. So her brother was like a map.
Okay, you didn't have to make it weird.
Yeah, I did.
Her brother was kind of weird, like her brother was kind of weird.
So she knows
scenes with her are really weird.
So then she knows that he's Sauron, and then she goes in and doesn't try and stop them from doing the thing that Sauron wanted them to do, and says, no, instead of 2, we'll make 3 of the things that Sauron wanted, because apparently they're not tainted. But the reason she gives is because 1 will corrupt. No.
1 will corrupt, 2 will divide.
1 will corrupt,
3.
2 will divide, but 3 will balance. Or just like more of a bad thing is more of a bad thing, right?
Which is another part of the reason that it would have made sense if like he had body swapped and shapeshifted into her and was like, oh yes, we shall do 3 so I can corrupt more of you. No, that apparently isn't the thing, because we see him.
And then the dumbest thing in the show is she has to sacrifice her dagger to make the rings. Because
I actually kind of liked that if it was by itself.
Let me finish.
Okay.
Because why? Because they needed Numenorian allies, specifically gold and
Valinorian,
silver. Sorry, Valinorian. They needed the gold and silver from her dagger.
The purest.
I don't
pure Valinor, gold and silver to make the.
I don't know if you know this, Jared, but you don't make daggers and swords out of gold and silver.
Out of pure gold and silver. Yeah.
Sometimes you can have some gold like in the hilt, like mixed in.
Mm-hmm.
But they
she stabs
melt
ice with it. She stabs an ice and climbs
they
up.
melt gold and edge. Okay, so I believe that there may have been some gold in the hilt, but what do? They melt down the entire dagger instead of peeling off the gold embroidery and melting that down into the ring. And not only that, but you can see there's gold and silver on the dagger, okay? Then it gets melted down and then magically separated back into 2 golds and 1 silver. What the hell?
I think that was supposed to be some sort of like a centrifugal sort of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I got too. It's just like some sort of magical elven.
But you can see like the whole dagger melts down, and there's a bunch of gold and silver, and then it melts down into 3 tiny ingots. After they added more ore with the mithril.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say, like, thematically, the concept of, okay, we're making things and we need something, and she has to sacrifice this dagger, that they've kind of pointed to it as it being a special thing, because like, oh, whose dagger is it? But then they haven't touched it for this entire show, except for showing her stabbing the ice with it. And that's about it.
Miraculously having it in her jumper when she's in the water, you know, like
she's obsessed with the dagger. She almost went to war for the dagger. Like she was about to beat off 100 Numenorians in the ship that they just rescued her for the dagger.
I don't know. I felt like it was so not present through most of the show, except the couple of times that they've mentioned it. But other than that, like the concept of this is her brother's dagger, and it's really important to her that she has to sacrifice it, and that it becomes a part of these 3 elven rings that are special and are actually powerful and have helped.
And how much more impactful would that have been if they took that dagger and started prying it apart? They could have done like this. It could have been focused on the dagger. They pry it apart, and then the focus shifts to her in the background, seeing her brothers, last remnants of her brother just being torn apart.
And I think even you can do the weird garbage thing about the melting it down, even though that makes no sense. Fine, because you can get that whole, you can still get a lot of that, but it just felt so weird and unearned. It really felt unearned to me. But I liked the idea of you sacrifice your dagger.
It's not a bad idea. It's
a special dagger for
horribly.
Yeah, very poorly.
She didn't even like acknowledge it. You know, maybe she was like, "Oh, this is the last beat of my brother" or something.
You can't
like
show
that.
her crying though.
Yeah,
because she doesn't know what emotions are like.
Yeah, she drops a tear every now and then, but most of them are of anger.
Yeah, the one, I think the one that she dropped, she cried at the figuring out that Halbrand is Sauron, and
Sauron is her brother. It was her crying is.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
It was fine, whatever. Yeah,
we gotta end up with it because.
Yeah, that's all.
We gotta talk about She-Hulk, and She-Hulk is.
I hated every second of it. I'm not looking forward to season 2. Well, I mean, if it's as bad as this, I can make a lot of memes, but it'll be like 2 years. So
yeah,
it's not even. It was good for content for as long as it lasted, but yeah, it's 2 years out of memes from the Rings of Power.
Yeah, with She-Hulk, I think that's another example of they were trying to be clever and referencing the idea of her popping out of the comic page, and it just fell flat. Like whatever, but it wasn't clever. They thought they were clever, and it was like
what was it
30% as clever as they thought it was.
I mean, we can get into it.
Well, because they even address like some of the things that are common critiques about the Marvel movies now, always going into the big CGI fight at the end, and always coming back to the super soldier serums and things like there's some almost legitimate like points of the fact that like all Marvel properties seem to do this, but then the end is just like, yeah, so we're just going to be happy. What? That's not a fulfilling ending either. I prefer the Marvel CGI thing over saying, like, it was a little bit messy in the original version that before she pops out and does her whole thing, and then it goes over to this, and it's just okay.
The funny thing that
I'm gonna hold on.
Shtick,
Pause. I'm gonna give Jared a chance to piece out if he wants to before we talk about She-Hulk.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because he's only watched Rings of Power, but we also have a couple Rings of Power bad takes.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it.
We can transition. Yeah.
Okay.
No, wait, are we doing the bad takes?
You can stay around for bad takes if you want.
Screen rants. Bad takes.
Okay.
No, get out of here, Jared. We don't want you here.
Oh, okay, bye. Of course you should go. You're taking over.
You should go really quickly anyway. Oh, hold on, let me switch back to that. Okay. Why Isildur's horse runs away in the Rings of Power episode 7? Because he's still alive. Because everyone knows this because he's in the Lord of the Rings.
Isildur's heir.
What? Why is this a question?
Did they basically just say, because they showed that it knows that Isildur's really alive? Oh, big.
Are there really idiots out there who didn't get this?
and those people
apparently
who didn't get this probably don't care.
I think maybe the only ones who didn't get it are the only people that enjoyed the show. So
yes.
Whoa.
Oh, this isn't a bad take. This is just news. I forgot to bring it up later. Brendan Fraser wants to make a 4th Mummy movie, and I am all freaking for it, baby.
Dude,
yes.
I was like Tom Cruise.
I don't
reboot?
even.
You mean?
I don't even care.
But yeah, the Mummy reboot. Yeah.
I don't even care if he gets back into shape. Like I just want to see Brendan Fraser in another Mummy movie.
Yeah, they can work that in the story.
I would want the original girl back.
Yeah, he's just a professor, chilling out. His wife left him or something. Yeah, that'd be interesting to see.
I would love it. It'd be great. It'd be funny to see him kind of struggle a little bit.
He was great at the well. He was great at the well.
I still haven't seen it, but I've been hearing great things.
I want to go check it out. You gotta see it. If you ever, if you ever dealt with some kind of issue regarding weight, it's gonna be impactful. It was impactful for me.
I don't have issues with my weight. Why would you?
He loves his weight just the way it is.
Why would you bring that up?
Alan, you're just the way you are.
Because he was flamed in Twitter because he was fat shaming. That's why.
Brendan Fraser is awesome. I don't even care that Mummy 3 was terrible. I would love to see him back for a Mummy 4.
Oh gosh, it'd be great. They should just forget Mummy 3 and just pretend that this is Mummy 3.
That would be great.
And bring back what's her name?
Abby.
The actress.
The actress.
Why can't I remember her name? Her. She was great.
Yeah.
She's great. And it was still the same person, but a different actress. And it didn't work as well. Bad takes. We got to go through these fast. Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power writers shut down the internet's sexist Galadriel criticisms because the only possible criticisms for a character must be sexist and racist. The Rings of Power showrunners explain how Galadriel is actually lore accurate. She's definitely in tune with what Lord of the Rings creator J.R.R. Tolkien put down in his writing. No. Here's their reasoning. People are complaining about Galadriel. This is what the showrunner said, I would love to see in Tolkien where it says that Galadriel never went to Numenor. That doesn't exist. Second, one of her nicknames is Nerwin, which means man maiden. And third, she does not act masculine. Okay, let's address these.
Saying she never went to Numenor.
Where in the books does it say that Galadriel did go to Numenor? It doesn't say it because she didn't go. It's practically impossible to prove a negative. Okay.
Also, that's not one of the criticisms that we have against the show.
That's my big thing. I don't care whether she did or didn't go to Numenor in the lore, or whether or not this is made up. Because go ahead, take her to Numenor. Okay. First of all, that criticism isn't a criticism that anybody is leveling. Second of all, how are you calling that sexist?
But first, I'm addressing this first. Okay, we're moving on. But everyone knows it's almost impossible to prove a negative. Just because he said, the reason why he never says she didn't go to Numenor is because that's not part of her story. He should have made a list of all of the things she didn't do rather than writing about the things that she did. That's exactly like saying this. Okay, but show me where it says in Tolkien that Galadriel never met Dumbledore on Tatooine. Nerds. You are so stupid. Okay, that doesn't exist. Screw you. Yeah, why don't you start with the stuff that does exist, you morons? Second, one of her nicknames is Man Maiden, which means we can make her act like a man. And third, we don't even make her act like a man. So why would you bring up both of these points? And why would you have a cover promoting your show with Galadriel manspreading in her manly armor?
Yep.
And also, I don't even care about most of that. Just to like make her an interesting character, and she was an interesting character. She can be an arrogant because I loved when I heard Liz on the show here talking about how she's arrogant. She thinks she's better because she's an elf or whatever. But you can do that without her being aggressive and unlikable.
The name Galadriel is loosely translated in Elvish as maiden with a crown of golden hair. The reason she had a crown of golden hair is because when she would fight and do all sorts of sparring with other elves, so she would put braid in her hair and put it on top of her head to stay out of the way. So the etymology of her name is that she is a warrior. This is such bull crap!
And even if they thought that they didn't even put it in the show, she always fights with her hair
down,
floating. Yeah,
every time they showed her fighting, her hair is down.
Yeah. I mean, they would have made more sense if she had her hair braided in. Forget the crown. The crown idea is stupid, but her hair braided, in some way.
Yeah.
But
they're promising bigger and better. Well,
the next season of the show will be bigger and better in every way. I don't give a crap.
I don't think
I was going to say,
more
first of all, that's not going to be hard to do because there's so much room to improve from here. But second of all, it's going to be impossible for these people to do because they can't seem to do it. They can't seem to put together an actual cohesive story.
Rachel Weisz, yes, thank you for that. That's the actress who's fantastic. Okay, David, you sent me this one. The Rings of Power remixed a classic Lord of the Rings war trope.
Yeah, so I think they reference a couple different scenes that they paid homage to is how they come across in this trailer. But really, it's just they
revisit Lord of the Rings surprise cavalry trope by making them ride in single file. Yep. It's different. It's better. They came in one at a time. The Rings of Power remixes this.
That's just saying how they did it. The first one is how they did it in the original, and then they do it.
They revisit it, and then they remix.
This is the same point.
That they go back and forth and show for the original.
That's one thing.
Oh, I thought there was another
That's
one. That's
all they have to say. If you actually analyze the cavalry arriving in Rings of Power, it completely destroys the show because they would have had to come from the east. Then it cuts to a shot of them riding in from the... Oh, sorry. They would have had to come from the west. Then it cuts to arrive in Mordor. Then it cuts to a shot of them riding in from the east because the sun is behind them. And they specifically mention that in the show when they show up in their boats. And then it cuts back to when they arrive in the city, them riding in from the west because the sun is shining in their face.
And so
for some reason they went like this, and then they went like this, and then they went like this.
Small note.
Good job mixing up that cavalry trope.
Small note on that last bit from this last episode when they're like, "Oh, we have to go east to Rune," and then they start walking, I think, north.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in their defense, Gandalf in that scene does say, "I don't know where I'm going."
Even though
But
he
I
did
can
pick up on
smell.
Rune, but not on the fact that they said we have to take you east to Rune. You know.
Yo, but remix is a good word because remix. You haven't heard any remix that is better than the original. Remixes are always way worse than the
That's
original.
such a good point.
Exactly.
So we're dissing the show without knowing it.
I still think that this
We're gonna have Little John remix your song, and he's gonna add a bunch of "Hey, ho, that, hey,
I still stand by
2009."
the fact. I'll still stand by the fact that saying that this is a remix is disrespectful to remixes, as bad as they are.
Okay, 10 biggest disappointments in the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah, this is a good list. It goes as you might expect. Most of these types of articles
The One Ring's abilities are ambiguous. How so? They make you turn invisible and corrupt you. Unless it's Sauron wearing it, then it gives him a bunch of power. How is that ambiguous?
But also, guess what? When it comes to the magic in Lord of the Rings, it's nebulous because it's the source of the problems, and then what makes it interesting is being able to overcome it when you don't understand it.
Kind of. But this is actually one of the examples of a hard magic system that wasn't ambiguous. It turns you invisible.
Yep.
The Maiar magic was soft magic, so it is more ambiguous.
Not only that, but it was one of the best things. Some of the most. Well, whatever. Just continue.
Legolas does little to move the plot because he's a side character?
Yep. I was saying you could insert that for every other member of the Fellowship. Of the Fellowship.
Gimli.
Every one of them by themselves didn't have a huge
you
impact.
You could even
on the
say
plot.
that about Aragorn.
Yeah. He was just there until the end of the Return of the King, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. But I mean, straight with Gimli at the is the easiest one to swap it out for.
Yeah, it's the sum of the parts, right? You know.
The elves have given up. Yeah, because that's part of the story. Their time has passed.
They've been there a long time.
Which also really undercuts the way that the Rings of Power is trying to be like, oh no,
they're trying to use that same trope.
Yeah.
They're trying to do the same thing in Rings of Power.
Except that the elves aren't accepting it this time. They're like, no, we don't want to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know where they were going with this point.
Yeah.
Men should not
Did a
be
woman
in Middle-earth.
wrote this? I'm gonna make the bold assumption that a woman wrote this.
So at first I thought this was a gender thing, but I think this is actually just saying mankind should not inherit Middle Earth.
That's
the
made
story
for man. That's why Middle Earth exists.
Okay, I got it. I got lost in translation there.
Well, and I thought for a second it was a gendered thing because we've got this bit where you've got the king that's making mistakes and Wormtongue that's messing him up, and maybe it should have been Arwen or something like that. But no, that's not what they're saying. As much as I could believe they would say that, they're saying mankind shouldn't inherit Middle Earth. But that's what the story is. This is coming into the age of man.
That's literally why Middle Earth exists.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm upset. The timeline.
Just to justify the Rings of Power, right?
Nothing to say.
It was just to justify the Rings of Power. Literally.
The timeline is just fine in the original Lord of the Rings movies. It's
linear.
Not, it's very linear. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I always lost the timeline, and the Lord of the Rings makes it linear, so it's easier to follow. Not only it's easier to follow, but it makes sense. It's logic.
And maybe it's still not completely clear whether this happened over the course of months or years or whatever, but it's still like it's clear that it took place over time, and they laid out the fact that time has passed for these people.
It's like,
whereas if you compare this to Rings of Power, which has garbage timeline management,
most importantly, you know what happens first and what happens later. And you are not wondering, oh, did the Harfoots did it before, or did Elrond and Celebrimbor were going at it in Khazad Dûm before, or later? What is going on with the timelines?
And when people are traveling, hey, guess what? We have a traveling montage.
Mm-hmm.
We show scenes of them getting from place to place. It's not like, oh, we're suddenly over here.
But sometimes we have montage, and sometimes we teleport from one place to another.
Yeah. And we do a little bit of map transitions in Ring of Power, but then we decide not to anymore.
Hobbits should have been given shoes.
Yeah, this one made me laugh so hard. It's like that's.
Films have a diversity problem.
I'm just surprised that they didn't put that as number 1. I'm surprised that's only number 4.
You're probably gonna see
it is European mythology.
Yes. Exactly.
But they
barely exist in Lord of the Rings. Okay. You know how they say, write what you know? Well, Tolkien was a man who served in war and hated war. I don't know if you know this, but it's mostly just men,
especially back then,
who get sent to war.
Especially back
It's
then.
not that he didn't care about women. It's that he didn't know how to write women very well. Same as me. If I'm trying to write a book and I don't know how to write women very well, so I'm not going to put a lot of them in the story that at least that have viewpoint chapters.
But even so, the women that are in the show
are done so well.
They're powerful.
I mean, in the books,
they're integral to the story.
Not in the show.
I'm sorry that every single writer on Earth is not omnipotent and knows exactly what it's like to be a woman. Deal with it. Guess what? Still the best-selling books of all time. Go screw yourself.
Like you said, it was another time. A man wasn't thinking about what a woman thought. A man was thinking about what men thought.
The Lord of the Rings has too many endings. No, it has one ending, and it's called an epilogue. It slows down a little bit. Grow up. Deal with it. Try watching Rings of Power. The Hobbits won't survive long because I'm assuming the reason here is because colonialization, right?
I think
when Gandalf arrives in the Shire, he remarks that they're
anonymity is their best defense.
I don't know. So war is going to come to them, and they'll just be, taken over easily. Except that I don't know if you've read the books. There's a whole section of it called "The Scouring of the Shire," where the hobbits fight back against the forces of Saruman.
That's actually that second paragraph there. That's actually what that second paragraph is saying, is that the movies don't show that. Because that's not what the movies were about.
Do you know why they didn't show that? Do you know why they didn't show that? Bing, 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 bing. Because people were complaining that it had too many endings.
Already, yeah.
Grow up.
That was so nice.
Yeah, but not only that too, but even if you're just talking about the movies, after the events of the Lord of the Rings, the hobbits were known to the rest of the world. They were largely before tucked away in their little corner of Middle Earth, and they were rarely seen, except occasionally by the people in Bree when they came down for a pint or whatever. They make a note of that. But at the end of the thing, all of the kingdoms bow down to them, and they say, when they try to bow to Aragorn, they say, "Hey, Aragorn, you bow to no man. We bow to you." Now everyone knows who the hobbits are and what they did for Middle Earth. And you saying that, they're just going to be run over and run out by colonialism?
Yeah, but forget about that. It's just a generation. So the next generation are not gonna know about the hobbits. And if they know something about the hobbits, it's something positive because of the coronation and scene in the whole show. So and the guys that saw that coronation that know about the existence of the hobbit, they are not gonna attack the hobbits for no good reason, because they know they helped a lot. So
exactly, they would be revered across all of Middle Earth. Their stories would be told and passed down to generations. They're not going to be coming and wiped out from. I don't know. It's dumb.
Yeah.
But yeah, this list is as bad as any of the other ones. I'm just surprised that number 4 was the lack of diversity. Because normally that tops the number 1 on these stupid lists.
Yeah. There's no many morenitos in the movie.
But don't worry, guys, because Rings of Power Season 2 will be more canonical. We promise.
Show me. I won't believe it till I see it.
Copium. It's copium. Yes. Yes.
But it's like, how are you going to recover from what you've done to the lore in this first season?
You can't. Moving on. Does Lord of the Rings trilogy pass the Bechdel test? Who cares? The Bechdel test is a joke. It was created as a joke, but stupid people took it seriously. Also, I'm pretty sure it does.
Yeah.
This
article is kind of funny too, because they bring that up. It's like, who cares about the Bechdel test anyway? Well, if you do, then maybe you care, but if you don't, then whatever.
Kind of.
So.
Oh, I'm right.
Yep.
Yeah. In the Two Towers, Eowyn talks to a child about their mother.
Again, acknowledging the fact that it was made as a joke and is kind of a ridiculous thing. Is one scene enough to make it past the Bechdel test?
Yep, that's it. That's the Bechdel test.
That's all it is, just one scene?
It's one scene where a woman is talking to another woman about something that's not a man. Does the Bechdel test even matter? No, it's stupid.
Because if that's something you really care about, want to make sure that there's something going on. One scene in an entire movie is not going to be the fix that you're looking for.
Exactly.
Because that's a perfect example of the fact that like that one scene is enough to pass, but that doesn't mean anything.
No, it doesn't mean anything. How about we just, instead of looking for stupid qualifiers and boxes to check for your diversity, how about you just write good stories, and if it's good, then people will watch it and read it.
And won't care about diversity, because the diversity you put on the show, it doesn't matter because you had a good show.
And you can look around and find some great diverse, like Coco. Like there's so many great diverse stories that are out there that are actually great. I don't know.
One way the Rings of Power outdoes the Lord of the Rings movies. Imagine how cringe I Am No Man would read today. It wouldn't, because I still watch that movie today and it's not cringy. I'm assuming it's because they have a female character who's written so well. Is that it?
That scene is thrilling.
David, you sent this one to me, I think.
I don't remember this one. I don't know what they're talking about.
Oh, frick, this is long. It's female characters are written better. No, they're not. I hate the female characters in Rings of Power, and I love them in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Oh, the show passes the Bechdel test. That's it. It's the Bechdel test, guys. That's it.
Wow.
Rings of Power, every adaptation is reinterpretation, so ignore the haters. I mean, sure, but some of those reinterpretations are good. and some of them are objectively terrible. Also, you know what this leads to? Criticizing Rings of Power, guys. Do you know what it leads to?
Patently
Take a wild
evil.
guess. No. Take a wild guess. If you criticize the Rings of Power, what does it lead to?
Racism.
No.
Sexism.
No.
All of the
A
above.
threat to our
Fascism.
democracy.
Fascism, yes. You forgot the third one is racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, and then fascism.
Don't criticize the Rings of Power because you will become a threat to our democracy.
Speaking your own opinion is going to be a problem. Yeah.
But probably, I mean, if you are fighting against people that want to shut you down and that think that your opinion is a weapon or something like that, and words are even, more harmful than actions. So maybe yes, maybe that's the reason why it's a threat to your democracy, because you are actually sentient people and they are sheeple.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark figured out how to become a member.
Hey.
Amen.
Yeah, we only have like 4 emojis right now. You get more as you get more members, but there's some rocks in there just for you. Oh gosh, it's so stupid. Also, newsflash: the United States of America is not a democracy; it is a constitutional republic.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a single thing that we vote on that gets passed by the will of the people alone. Even the election is done with delegates. Your vote doesn't. It's not a 1-to-1 thing, guys.
I think there are some laws that end up being more local laws and things like that are voted on more directly. But
even so, even if they present it that way, the representatives can overturn anything. It's a representational. A constitutional republic.
But these people didn't pay attention in their U.S. history class, so
I'm planning on doing a small talk about that eventually, but it's kind of complicated to get into here. And then the rest is She-Hulk, I guess. So Rings of Power is over.
She-Hulk's over.
It's over.
Jared, we're so glad you're back. You can leave if you want, or you can listen to the last 2 bad takes.
Yeah, sure. You're glad I'm back. Oh, you mean him? Oh,
but it's been good to be back, guys, and look forward to the upcoming shows. So
yeah, dude. So we've been talking about these 2 crappy shows, but I'm liking Andor, and House of the Dragon is really good. So
yeah, I think
there's a lot of woke guys. There's a lot of woke stuff that they put into House of the Dragon too. But because the story is good, it doesn't bother me that much.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
So you can't use that argument and say, oh, if you criticize the show, it's because you're a racist.
Yeah, sometimes it's even well done. I mean, not the racial thing. I mean the feminist messages.
It's great.
Yeah, it's good.
Awesome.
So
check them out.
All right. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Enjoy your married life.
Yeah.
Go have some fun, other Jared.
Yeah. Let us know if we need to play that stinger again.
I think that may not happen.
We'll just play it every week, okay?
All right. See you guys.
See you. I have retaken my place as the only Jared.
Could She-Hulk season 2 happen? MCU show creator has a blunt response. She says, I just had a baby. Don't ask me if I'm going to have another baby. That's her blunt response. Also, it's probably not getting a season 2. The ratings are horrible.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what I have to say about that one. Because this will fix the problem.
Oof.
The She-Hulk team explains the fourth wall breaking in the finale, delivering a FU to the toxic Marvel trolls. You mean the customers?
Sentient people?
You mean the people who made Marvel what it is today by consuming Marvel? We're just going to say FU to them?
Yeah.
I didn't even get any FU to anybody out of that finale. I don't know.
The villain was YouTubers.
Well, yeah, but that was the previous episode more than anything. And it was,
So
I still think
whole-
that there are toxic people like that, sure, we can criticize that there are toxic people like that. Just don't conflate that with people who just have legitimate concerns and criticisms about your show.
Yeah. That whole group of people at the end finale that she was fighting and confronting, whatever, was made up of their so-called toxic fans that didn't like her show.
Yeah.
It was a caricature.
And I get that, but they caricatured, and it's like I don't even. That's the thing. I don't identify with, like, I really have problems with this show. I don't identify with that. So when they criticize them, I don't care because I'm not them. And so sure,
I know,
you guys
but-
can think that you guys are criticizing me by criticizing them. You're not. I don't care what you say. You're not. I have legitimate criticisms that have nothing to do with the sex or the race or the whatever else going on. It all has to do with how
The storytelling is garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
I don't
that's
care
the
that you
thing,
criticize
and-
them and say that I'm like them. I'm not.
They're
I'm not like
also
that.
they're also strawmanning it incredibly by doing stuff like
Yeah, of
this. Like
course.
this She-Hulk is so faithful. It's the most faithful comic book adaptation we've ever had, because in the comic books, the She-Hulk talks to the audience. She tries to tear out of the comic book, and they did that in this show because she breaks Disney Plus. That's not what we were complaining about.
Mm-hmm.
Like this in and of itself, yeah, it was a little bit too much, I think. A little too meta.
Yeah.
But that's not the problem that we have with the show. The problem is she does that, goes and talks to the writer's room and complains about how bad the writing is, and only just confirms the things that we've been complaining about the whole time. Like,
Exactly.
they point out
Like,
all of the things that we've
guys are-
said. This show is
Yeah.
boring because of bullet list, bullet list, bullet list, bullet list. And then in the finale, she says, this show is boring because of bullet list, bullet. Just because you point it out and you're self-aware that your show sucks doesn't make it better.
Exactly. Yeah,
They-
exactly.
the whole-
That was my issue.
The whole stealing her blood plotline was set up in the first episode.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even have a problem with that plotline. You know, it made sense if the Hulk gave you, you know, the accident, if you went in contact with his blood, and that's the reason you became She-Hulk. Well, that would make sense if someone knew that they would try to take advantage of that and take your blood, and that blood, but they get rid of it and they throw it away for some reason. Like it was.
Also,
it was like,
they don't even proofread their show though, because they deliver a line saying other people have been exposed to gamma radiation and it didn't do anything. The reason why is because there's something special about our blood,
about
their specific genes. So the guy taking it at the end wouldn't have done anything.
Turn into a Hulk.
Well, no, it did explain though that him passing it on to her has mutated it and made it more transferable. I guess you could say. That's why I said
you
it was
do
such a
have
danger,
Abomination and you have Red Hulk. So there are other people that end up with some sort of thing like that because they've been able to science it a little bit. But it's still, they thought they were so clever because they were like, see, we're pointing at like, see how bad,
see how garbage our show is. And then they make all these changes. She makes all these changes, right? She busts into the writer's room. They make fun of Kevin Feige, and she makes all these changes, and then they cut back to reality, and nothing changed. The finale was still garbage. Like the status quo was completely the same, except that the one guy didn't turn into a Hulk.
Bro, but
he was still the villain. Like
was the same.
everyone was still there.
Yeah.
Well, the Hulk wasn't there, and Tatiana wasn't there, and the guy didn't turn into the Hulk. But yeah,
Tatiana was there. Titania was there. Titania
She
was
was?
taking us.
Yeah.
She was. She was
taking
live
selfies because
streaming.
she was with she was like, oh yeah, look
like,
how cool this is.
nothing
Something
changed.
like,
Nothing happened.
Bro,
Bro,
it's just so messy and weird.
we have to start speaking
that
about
she magically pulled the Daredevil there
episode because
so she could have sex with him again against his will.
Not necessarily against his will, but it was still just completely.
She pulled him there against
ridiculous.
his will.
Yeah, she did. Yeah,
that's not consent.
Yeah. So what? What I find is so ridiculous is they set up all this whole thing to be, analogous to the toxic fandom being the real villains.
Why would you make that your villain?
Right? But not only that, but in doing their gag, like you said, to go and change the thing, they acknowledge that it's bad writing, right? So it's like I don't understand what the purpose of that whole gag was for.
And they make it so that the show has no point because, again,
exactly.
Cool, there are toxic fans out there. Yeah, you're feeding the trolls if you're adding to this. You're feeding the trolls, and you're giving us, who have legitimate criticisms,
the
more
things
to
that
also
the
feed them.
fans
But,
were
like,
saying were all true, though. They said she's a
Exactly.
massive slut, and she is. And they were saying she's derivative
everyone
of
in
Hulk,
the world
and
nowadays
she
is.
Like all of the lines, they weren't illegitimate criticisms.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the only thing that this does is it confirms that everything that we've seen in the She-Hulk show is not MCU canon, because it can be changed on a whim when she decides to jump out of Disney Plus and change the script. So nothing that happened in this entire show, including Daredevil's inclusion, is MCU canon.
But she says in the show that that's what's MCU. Like she says in the show that her show was MCU canon when she's talking to Kevin. She's like,
But how can it be MCU canon if you're changing it? They literally show the writer's room and say, "Hey, that's not what's going to happen. This other thing is going to happen."
The canon
It doesn't
was
make
the
any
thing she
sense.
changed. I mean, the canon was the thing she changed, like getting Daredevil. Like the thing she said, Daredevil is gonna be with me. That's why they say that She-Hulk is going to be in Daredevil. Which
they're gonna
holy
put She-Hulk
moly.
in the new Daredevil show.
Holy guacamole!
Yeah.
The
only thing that fourth wall breaking whole way too long episode does is it proves that the fans were right, the writing was terrible, and that the MCU canon doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The fourth wall breaking always is going to have those kinds of issues. So I can even accept that, like, sure, it doesn't make any sense, it doesn't work, but okay, whatever. Yeah. It's still its own thing that they break fourth wall break, because fourth wall breaking does trash that for sure.
Yeah,
but sure, but there's certain amount of levels of where it can be acceptable. You're not when you just turns to the audience and addresses the audience directly.
Deadpool. When Deadpool breaks the fourth wall, it amplifies the story.
All the way up until now, most of the fourth wall breaks I have not minded. I really have not minded most of the fourth wall breaks until now.
No,
this one was, and it was okay. Cool. You're gonna do something where you're gonna pop out and try to fix the story, but you don't even fix the story. You just say it's going to be done and everything's going to be happy. That's not fixing the story.
They still acknowledge that the story can be changed.
And the problem is all of these things were set up from the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's not. But she was trying to argue, "Oh, this is a horrible finale. We need to fix the finale." But in reality, it's a horrible show.
The whole show.
Right. And now the problem is, like, we don't know what are the stakes. Like, did they not get her blood? Did they not do a serum? Is that something that's going to be a threat to the MCU in the future? We don't know because she just changed it.
Who knows?
What's the canon?
Cares?
Exactly.
Because
they
thought they
the
were
show writers certainly don't.
Yeah.
They don't know and they don't care.
Yeah, I mean the canon is that
they admit that they don't know and they don't care because they were like, yeah, see, we're just going to be like, haha, look at how funny this would be.
Yeah, I mean the canon the canon they changed is gonna suck because now She-Hulk is gonna be in 2 episodes of Daredevil in a wordless cameo, and that's where the character is probably going to die. Because I hope that there's not a season 2 because
the other thing that really frustrated me looking at the show as it is and what it shows, it was to her point, I guess, but like it was so garbage that like she had one kind of freak out and they throw her in the Abomination prison. I'm like, what? Also, even within your own show's logic,
they give her an inhibitor chip, and her sentencing is you are no longer allowed to turn into She-Hulk. And then part of the finale is in regards to the Abomination. She says, "Well, all I want is for him to take responsibility for his actions." So he didn't do anything bad. He was turning into the Abomination to give TED Talks, and he has to get sent back to prison. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
She turned into She-Hulk. So why isn't she being held responsible for doing the same thing that he did? Because the showrunners didn't think about it. Because they're morons.
Yep.
That was the most infuriating thing.
I just want him to take responsibility for his actions.
And that's the thing is he was so like
they were actually building him up as a good guy in the show.
Were they trying to bait and switch with him because he was a good guy?
No, they weren't. Like, even in the finale, he's protecting her, and Hulk
Yeah.
starts fighting him on accident.
Yeah, that was so confusing. I thought he was like, inspiring these guys to hate on She-Hulk or something.
And then it turned out that he really didn't care, but he was just trying to give a generally inspirational talk. But they decided that
he was just doing a cameo, like he's on Cameo, and people can pay for him to show up as Abomination.
Like the closest you get to him in that finale episode being a problem was the fact that he didn't sit there and go, "No, I don't want to give this TED talk because you guys are garbage people." Which is what he probably should have done.
But he didn't even know. He showed up to the event, and he didn't know. Like he didn't know anything about him.
Probably, maybe he should have paid a little more attention.
And they've gone through.
They've
gone in the show. He's only helped Jen process her insane emotions.
And again, he then goes and tries to protect her.
The best moral character of the
so
show.
Then to undercut him and say, "Oh, he just needs to take responsibility for the fact that the closest you could get to being he made a mistake was he didn't vet the fact that this event going on at his ranch is an anti-She-Hulk thing, and he's just trying to be like, hey, do your thing, and he's just not even. But that's the closest you get, and that's what's going to turn him.
Refuse jobs from Harvey Weinstein. No.
Yeah. Well, and
if you ever starred in a movie with Harvey Weinstein, this is basically saying you are essentially responsible for the things that he did.
I mean,
that's what it is.
Yeah, but if you hug him, and if you thank him for helping you build your career, maybe
if you pull a Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah, but I have a statement, and I hope to see if you agree. The beginning of the episode, she getting fired or whatever, and all until the point where they go to the incel meeting. It felt like probably the best episode so far, like in some way.
The intro was
the homage
to the old TV show was great.
Yeah,
I was like, wow.
The first 10-15 minutes of the show were good. Were actually probably written by a person that the only guy in the show that wrote a comic. That's the only writer that wrote a comic. And that looks like, hey, this is a guy that actually like Hulk and is ripping off. Probably he saw it in Family Guy, because Family Guy they did it first, and it was a little bit funnier in Family Guy because it was this big fat guy, it was funny. But yeah, it kind of worked, and they used the actress that actually plays the body of She-Hulk, and that was interesting. I was wondering, why didn't they do that? It almost looked better than the actual CGI. And I was like, why wasn't this the show? Imagine that was the whole show.
That was the saddest part. When they started doing that, I was like, this is really good, but you could tell the show thought it wasn't. They did it to make fun of it. And I was like, that is so sad, because this is the best part of your show.
It was
funny. It was only included so they could clown on it.
It was funny. It was clever, and it paid homage to one of the best intros in old school Marvel shows.
Paid homage to the people who built your roads.
But it wasn't. It was a mockery, like you said. They think it was so bad that it was gonna be funny because it was so bad because that intro was bad somehow, but it wasn't.
It was.
I agree. I liked that intro. The rest of the opening until the rest of the episode felt so garbage, and her trying to call it out was again just them thinking they're so clever and they're not.
No, but what I was meaning felt funny. It was like the funniest because the whole thing with when the guy that hits on her at work, that is a total arse. That says something like, oh yeah, we totally dated, and she was a total psycho, and I was yes. Someone saying the truth,
because I'm just like, that's a garbage piece of he's a piece of garbage, and I'd rather be with her than with him because he's garbage. So screw him. No, but
yeah,
that was just funny. I mean, I probably think that it wasn't their intention to make that funny because it was so ridiculous and it was so like it was so make white men bad. It was so in the nose that it was just ridiculous, and it was funny because of that.
Even the good white man they had to turn into a villain. He was punished for nothing, really.
Yeah, and then it, like you said, it gets dumber and dumber. Like it was great, and it goes and explodes. And the whole scene when it gets in another level of ridiculous is the whole scene in the incel group, intelligentsia, intelligentsia. The whole thing with Puck and his AirPod, like, are an AirPod supposed? Well, no, it's just no one there was wearing another AirPod, so make no sense. Why no one would notice him using an AirPod? And obviously it was obvious that someone was speaking to his, was putting words in his mouth.
Also, I just realized, wasn't it previously established that there was no
and that was the thing,
except in that building?
Yeah.
So she's just outside talking to him.
Mm-hmm. That was the thing where they were trying to like hide the reveal of the fact that this was Abomination things, and it was so obvious. And that was one more piece of the just like, they're going to be like, oh, he barely has any reception.
It's funny because they kind of remember that fact. They kind of remember like, oh, but they don't do it.
Also, she just drives up and parks on the lawn.
On the lawn there,
like a dick.
Well.
Yeah, that one is ruined,
I guess this is around LA, so that would be a problem. Because in the Midwest, Midwest, they do that constantly, and it's not a problem because there's so much moisture in the air that you can do that, and it doesn't hurt the lawn at all. But this is LA, so I don't know.
Yeah, and Abomination being that was a little bit convenient, just a little bit. No, it was
there were no stakes. None of it meant anything. It was just a pointless waste of time.
Yeah.
Well, and up until she decided to rewrite the ending, it was okay, pretty stereotypical, kind of gonna get overboard and whatever. You're gonna go with this, and then she undercuts it in a way that undercuts the entire season and makes it completely pointless to begin with. And it's not. It's
and you also have to remember
30% as clever as they think it is.
You also have to remember that this show had rewrites. Marvel watched it and thought it was so garbage. This was the patch. This was the patch, was to say, we know it's garbage, but we're not going to change any of it.
Damn, that's like Cyberpunk, like for the first year.
It's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, like I said, it wouldn't matter if the scene was dumb or something like the fourth wall breaking, because like you said, Jared, sometimes they are not that clever, because it's hard to write a good fourth wall. I remember the best fourth wall scene that I've seen, I think, is in a cartoon named Chowder. I don't know if you guys remember that. There was a great scene where they're supposed to go broke because they spend a lot of money in dumb stuff, so they run out of money to get animation. So the next shot is just the group of voice actors in the studio just talking and saying what are we going to do, and it's just hilarious to watch. And there's this guy saying rather, and it's just so funny to see a human just say rather, something like these stone guys used to say. And they do a whole scene with they make they try to get money, they make a car wash, and they get the money, and now they paid for the animation. So that scene worked perfectly because not only they established in the episode why they were breaking the fourth wall, first of all, which they don't do in She-Hulk, that she suddenly, like, when she says, is this working for you guys, and the app just comes, and who click return in the app? Who? The writers, the person watching the show, us, the person
it's supposed to have been you guys, I think. Yeah
But that makes no sense because
we're still watching it. Yeah,
but how would she break
They just think they're super clever and they're not.
No. And okay, do that scene. It doesn't matter if not
kind of sort of.
Okay, it doesn't matter if it's cheesy, if it's not clever. Do that scene, but have some consequences when she changes things. Like you said, nothing happened. Titania is still there for no goddamn, like no goddamn. How did she know for? How and why? What was she doing there? She helping She-Hulk. She's beating up incense. So I guess
what
she's
was
helping
Titania's purpose in the whole show?
Nothing. Just troll people in Twitter. Just troll people on Twitter.
None of the show meant anything.
She's probably gone. I mean,
before the fix or after the fix, and it's worse after the fix. Like it's so much more pointless after the fix.
Another thing that's hilarious about her whole breaking through into the real world or whatever, she shows up in the studio and they're like, "Oh, She-Hulk is here." Like, what? No, you know, if she wouldn't show up as She-Hulk in the real world, and people are just like, "Oh, hey, guess what? It's She-Hulk here filming the thing."
I know, like if they wanted to do that, they should have showed the writers like in shock and be like,
well, they should have had her be like, cut, hang on just a second, and walk off set, not coming out of the because I watched Supernatural and I really like.
That would have been so much better if she cuts and just walks through the
walks
set.
Off and it suddenly walks off the set.
That would have been great.
Hang on.
It would have been a little bit funnier.
It would have been a lot better. Yeah. But they wanted to be clever. They wanted to be like, well, we're not on a comic panel, but what are we in? We're in Disney Plus, so she has to break out. Instead of breaking out of the comic panel, she has to break out of Disney Plus. Like, okay, fine. I guess that's feels a little bit like the theory could be a little bit more clever, but it just didn't work.
They could have done it. They could have done the same gag if it had made sense for the story. But the whole point of the gag was to scrap the entire story and rewrite the whole thing. It could have been like, wait, I'm confused. How does this connect or whatever? And so she breaks out and she goes to the writer's room and she gets clarification on something that happens.
So a bunch of people show up. Exactly. A bunch of people show up at the end and she's like, wait, I don't even know what's going on. Pause. Let's go to the writer's room, pull out the chalkboard. Okay. Emil is here because of this and he wants this. So this person is here because of this and they want, and just like block out everything. And you're like, okay. I think I get it now. Let's go back. Right? Yeah. Like that would have been
or even good. Be like, look at all these different things. Well, that doesn't really make sense. So we can move that and change it to this.
Yeah, maybe he shows up later after this because it doesn't really make sense why he would make sense why he'd be. If his motivation is such and such.
Yeah.
Like, and then you make they
wanted to tease nobody was surprised that guess what? He's going off to Sakaar because of his son. Like nobody was surprised. Anybody who was watching that was just like, so he's going back to Sakaar with his son, right?
That was the worst way to do marketing for the World War movie. Like, who's going to watch that movie? Who is going to watch that movie in the name of God? Who is going to watch people that are
with
lefty?
His haircut?
Yeah.
Whatever. That's just going to be a different style. So it's like I don't care.
He's going with his hairline, like.
I don't. Yeah, whatever.
He's got a sue. His entire plot is going to go to She-Hulk, and She-Hulk is gonna help him sue the guy that did this crime to his forehead.
Whose hair?
No! Like this doesn't like they and it had a bunch of Easter eggs, but it doesn't make me excited for any of them. You know, I'm not excited for the new Daredevil show. I'm terrified.
If She-Hulk
by
is
the
there,
fact
I'm
that
not
there's
gonna
going
watch
to be a new Daredevil show.
I love Daredevil. I absolutely love Daredevil.
One of the best parts of
I've been rewatching.
One of the best parts of the previous episode was when he shows up and you get to hear that intro music and you're like,
oh yeah,
love that intro music.
Played his theme.
Oh good.
Yeah, they played his little Daredevil theme, and I was like, oh, and then they instantly ruined it. But I don't want to talk about She-Hulk anymore. I want to talk about some good stuff.
Yeah. But we are done with She-Hulk probably.
Yes. Andor
was the most.
Andor was friggin' good.
The
heist was fun and cool. I mean, it was a little predictable who was going to die, especially when he talks to the kid and says, "Oh, we can do this after you can sleep when it's over." Well, okay, he's dead.
He's going to be sleeping.
But that's an instance of foreshadowing that's done well, right?
Like at the moment where he gets crushed, I'm like, "Ooh, that was a that was a well.
But we are getting ahead of ourselves. Let's start with the first part of the first act, which felt a little bit slow, but I think was great done, at least in the context of lore. It felt like Star Wars. It felt like Star Wars again.
It did. And that was my one contention with the show, is that it didn't necessarily feel Star Warsy to me, and this was like, yeah, I like it.
Yeah. Oh, so many good things.
But the tension just built so naturally, and it's set up so well. Their plan makes sense. There's nothing to pick apart. There weren't any inconsistencies. They killed off both the black characters, which was a little silly.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting so many characters to die. I was expecting the younger one to either die or get captured and left behind, and then Andor has to go
and then
back
after
and,
they kill off the other guy, the other character too.
Yeah,
but
yeah, it was really good.
The only question I have is the lady that stayed behind in the communication tower, keeping everybody at gunpoint. She kind of just she walks off, and she
changes into an outfit, and leaves.
But I still feel like I'm curious what's supposed to be happening with her, because
I don't know. I didn't really give a reason why she didn't go with him.
Well, and I think partially it was to keep an eye on those prisoners, and she needed to keep an eye on the communication stuff. So I mostly understood why she didn't go with them, but it didn't do a good job of maybe giving an idea of okay, so what's going to happen with her now, because she has been seen by these people and is still there. So what does she do where she then, when she leaves the communications place and goes down to where the celebration is?
Yeah.
So what would have made a difference? I think what probably is supposed to happen, she's supposed to get down there to the celebration, take off her Imperial stuff, and pretend like she's one of the natives again, and can leave with the natives, and maybe can hide that way.
Here's the thing, though.
I think that's what
I trust the show to follow up and tell us.
She looks native.
It was a little dangling thing, and I don't know exactly what happens to it, but I'm not worried about it, because the show is good.
They may not. They might come back, and if they do, I trust them that they will, and they'll do it pretty well. But also, it's very possible that they might not. But it's going to be one of those things where it won't matter.
Even then, you can imagine how she got out.
Exactly.
Because you set it up well. It was well told. In spite of that little kind of dangle, there's a little bit of but that could work if it's something like this. So even if she does kind of show up, you're like, hey, that's cool. And because we're not hating the rest of the show, we'll be like, that's one thing that was a little bit weird, but we're totally fine saying, I'll bet you it's something like this. And we're okay with that.
Yeah, I think they're not going to give an explanation for that, because it relies on the fact that when these new recruits arrive, that is really the double agents, they don't recognize them by face, and so probably they are changing the staff constantly, so they don't recognize the faces of so she is pretending to be a staff member when she goes out to the celebration, and there are soldiers still out there, but they probably don't recognize her, because as well they didn't recognize the other guys.
I know they explained so much.
That's why. Yeah, that's why I think that was.
I loved it when he says if we meet up with someone from the base, say you're from the city, and if you meet up with someone from the city, say you're from the base, and it's just it's good.
Yep.
Yeah. Exactly. The other thing that was a little bit weird to me is they had this whole plan to steal all the credits or whatever, and there were so many credits.
There were a lot of credits.
They took a lot of credits, but it was only a quarter of what was in there, right?
Yeah, probably a third.
But their plan was a little bit confusing to me when they expected the Imperials to help them load everything. I feel like they should have had a better plan in place to transfer everything faster,
but with how much there was,
it still worked.
Yeah, and it did mostly work, and it was consistent enough where you could be like,
and they did bring the guy with them, so it made sense that was part of their plan. But
right. Yeah, it just surprised me that was their plan, to help to have their captors help them load everything up.
Yeah, it's a bit of a risky plan.
It
was risky, but it worked. It worked. Yeah.
And it was consistent enough to be able to say, like, you know, the people could have tried to resist. I think it would have been good to show one or two of them saying, no, we're not going to do it, and have them kill them. Have them be like, okay, fine, boom, you're gone. And then be like,
I felt like it was enough,
like,
though, for the guy to say, they have my kids.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know?
Yeah.
And they didn't want to show, you know, maybe they don't want to show them as the bad guys. You know, they are the good guys.
But they are showing
even the wrench in their plan was set up well, and it was believable. Like the guy overheard their radio chatter because he was concerned. Like I don't have any complaints. There's nothing to pick apart because they peer reviewed their scripts, guys. They thought about this stuff. It's well.
They trust their audience. They trust their audience to connect the dots, right?
Yeah.
That next step too of them escaping into the eye, that was
beautiful. So good. Yeah,
so good. And just even the first couple times that you see things coming, and when you first see that whole group of things coming up, you're like, that is gorgeous. And then you see them, the very cool escape thing going on, and the tension, of course, like you said, they're building the tension with the one guy. He's the guy who can manage their navigation without with these things interfering. And they're like, oh, are you going to be able to do it? Because he's been crushed, and he does it, and you scrape through.
Him getting crushed. Him getting crushed. Like, yeah, the line it set it up well, and it was predictable. But this is a case where predictability is not bad. And when they got onto the ship, I knew it. I said to myself, he's going to get crushed by the gold. And it happened. And it didn't
ruin anything.
When predictability is done like that, where it's satisfying when you know what the answer is going to be. And when it happens, you're like, well, yeah, that's how I would have done it if I was going to kill him off, because it's kind of poetic, right?
Yeah.
His death means something, and he's crushed by, like, the goal that they're doing is his downfall, right? And then he has to take his notes or whatever, right? His manifesto, right? Like it serves the story, but when I'm able to predict, stupid things that happen in Rings of Power, it's because it's cliche that I'm able to their writing is so thin that it's so easy to say what they're going to be doing. There aren't any surprises. When it's a similar symptom, but the disease is very different. One of them is a really good thing, and one of them is just awful.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it comes down to too, there's so many other parts of Rings of Power and She-Hulk that are just so confusing and garbage and weird, so that when something kind of predictable comes in, you're like, well, we're already frustrated at the garbage stuff that's going on. So when you get a predictable thing, you're like, oh, great, we're getting a predictable thing too. Whereas this one, where it's like, this is really interesting, and then like, okay, that might be predictable, but then to your point, it still allows there to be tension, because
it's the difference between a trope and a cliche.
Yeah,
like, tropes are not bad. Tropes exist because it's done so well. A trope is not bad, but when it's done poorly, it becomes cliche.
Amen, brother.
Exactly.
And my favorite part about that scene is that I was expecting, obviously, like all of us, to that guy to die in that episode.
But I wasn't expecting all of the other people to die too.
Yeah, and I was just waiting. Exactly. But I was just waiting. No, I was just waiting for this guy. I was sure that only this guy was gonna die, because he was the only one. I mean, well, the other guy also died, but
I was not expecting the confrontation after the fact. It was like, hey, let's just take the gold and go, and he just kills him. And I was like,
yeah, that was weird.
Really good.
That came out of nowhere for me, but
good.
it makes sense. And so when the twist comes, you're like, well, okay, yeah,
it makes sense.
It fits the fact that he realized that he made the mistake early on in the first episode there, where he's like, dang, and he's willing to just do that because he knows that's what needs to happen. And he doesn't love it, and he realizes it's kind of making a big problem for him, but it also leads to exactly how we see him in the beginning of Rogue One.
Exactly.
He's the guy who has become the one that they can lean on to say, we just need you to take care of what needs to be done. And he knew this is what needs to be done, because he's going to betray him anyway. Otherwise, he's going to try to spin it on me, because he's super suspicious of me, and he's been with them, so that he's going to be able to spin it on me. So I just need to kill him and get out of here, because this is not going to go well for me.
I will say they need to bring in Alan Tudyk real quick.
They've said that he's not coming until season 2.
Really?
But I'm so excited for him in season 2, because Alan Tudyk is so amazing, and K2SO is so amazing.
That's going to be great. It's gonna be great. Probably gonna be
Yeah.
even better because they are
I'm
gonna
sorry to
learn
break
from.
your heart. I'm sorry, Alan. That's what I've
I mean,
heard. And who knows, they could be
makes
lying.
sense. It makes sense narratively, but
Yeah, it
But
wouldn't
that's
even
the
be.
other.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead. Oh,
Wouldn't it, I was just gonna say that wouldn't it be better for the show maybe not to kill the guy and leave him paraplegic? That would have been more impactful for me.
yeah,
That
I thought
he
that
cannot
might have been
fight
more
anymore,
interesting.
but he can still do things. So
Except that Star Wars, you can just replace everything and then not be a paraplegic.
Yeah,
that's
So-
true. Yeah.
It could be
okay,
interesting
you
to
have
see
it
him
right,
maybe
you're right.
struggling with the consequences of him going into this and then deciding to stick with it or not. I think that the other problem with that is
I
that
thought
they,
for a
they
second
have a
that-
story they want to tell, and I don't think that they wanted to have to spend time on another side story for somebody else.
I thought for a second that they might turn him into Alan Tudyk, because there was one line where there was modulation on his voice when he screamed "dive," and it sounded like Alan Tudyk
Huh.
when he's giving him directions. I could have just
Could've
been
been
something
interesting,
weird
yeah.
on my TV, but when he said
Yeah.
like oh you need to rise, and then when he says dive, there was modulation. It was da like and it sounded robotic, and I was like, wait, do they like take his brain and put it into the thing? But that's obviously not the
I don't
case.
know.
I'm gonna
That
go
would be
rewatch
interesting, but-
that scene though.
Yeah, because it's so good. I'm excited to see where they go with it. I'm excited to see. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to say is, I think as much as I would love to see Alan Tudyk and K2SO coming in, I am also happy with them not feeling that like they have to rush to that.
Yeah.
Taking the time, telling an interesting story here, and then you can get to that in a good way. It's like take your time and tell a good story.
It's
Don't
interesting
get
how
so
they're
caught up
doing
in
it.
number varies.
It's
you know?
interesting how they're doing it in like 3-episode arcs though, and I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been really good so far. So
Alan
so
Tudyk,
Mark,
by the way, Mark. Yeah, I was going to say he
plays
he's
the robot.
guy, plays the robot, plays the voice of K2SO
K2SO.
in Rogue One. If you ever watched Firefly, which if you haven't, go watch Firefly. He's the guy who's the pilot in Firefly. He also does a ton of Disney voices now. Mostly they're like creatures and animals and stuff like that. He is a great, really fun and funny.
He's in A Knight's Tale.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yes,
yeah.
He plays the chicken in Moana for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like I said, he's doing a ton of like Disney animal voices where it's just basically him being like or
It's
whatever.
basically
you know?
just a joke at this point. If there's like some animal character, they just make him voice it.
Yeah, basically.
he's like he's the weasel character in
Yes.
Zootopia or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a great guy, great voice actor.
He resides as an
He's
alien.
awesome.
He's in Resident Alien, which I've heard is a pretty good one.
I watched the first
Martina,
season.
too soon.
And I heard the season 2's out, and I haven't even watched it.
Yeah,
Too soon, Martina. He's a leaf in the wind. Watch him soar.
Yeah, Resident Alien season 1 was pretty good. I need to get back to it. House of the Dragon is good.
If you've seen it, Mark, if you've seen Firefly, he's a leaf in the wind.
Well, that doesn't mean he's seen Serenity.
That's true.
Fair.
That's true.
That's fair. I think he doesn't he say that though in the show a little bit, like at least the
I
first
think so.
episode or
I think
two.
he says it in the show.
So yeah. But if you have not seen Serenity, go watch Serenity and break your heart. What? No spoilers.
I assume anybody who's watched Firefly knows about Serenity and has seen it at this point.
Fun fact: I didn't know about Firefly. I watched Serenity in theaters, and I loved it. And then someone said, "There's more of this," and I died. So what?
It's not going to happen to Oh, Mark, go.
Like,
oh my goodness.
I don't know what you guys are
Serenity
talking
is
about.
the perfect conclusion to the Firefly series.
Go rewatch
so
Firefly, and then it's the best they can do with the fact that they got
Let's
most
see
of a
if we can
season
do
with
this.
some different plot threads, and they got a movie to finish it
Let's
up.
see if this works.
So I watched first Firefly and then Serenity, or first Serenity and then Firefly.
Firefly and then Serenity, probably. Yeah, there you go. That's
it's
my
not-
recommendation for sure.
I don't know how to do the emojis from here.
I think you've got it. Yeah, because
It's
it's
on your
it
phone.
didn't.
You gotta do it from your
No,
phone.
it didn't show up on.
It didn't show up
on YouTube.
Mark needs rocks, everybody.
Yeah. Rocks in the chat for Mark. He's the
I'm
only member though, so I
I'm
think he's
using
the only one that has access to it.
I'm using a third party to stream, so I can't do the emojis from here. I tried just copying and pasting; it didn't work. Yeah, watch Serenity, man. It's a great. It speeds up. Like it's disappointing because they have to speed everything up and just and wrap and it's the end of an era, but they did a really good job.
I would love
good job of
like
wrapping most of like, and they couldn't do everything, but
they couldn't.
They picked the important
wrap
things,
good.
And it's beautiful. It's a great ending.
It's so good. It's also a self-contained thing too. So you can watch Serenity.
I enjoyed it without having seen the TV show.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's fantastic.
I wish, because I don't. They're not going to be able to go back to finish up or redo Firefly or anything like that.
No.
That was such a good universe, though. I wouldn't mind them doing like another spin-off.
They've talked about
you know,
they're going to do. They might do some spin-offs, but yeah. So the way the Serenity works is that the intro segment is actually a prequel to the TV show, and then the rest of the movie is a sequel to the TV show. But it fills in like the gaps of like why everyone's there, and so you can just skip.
Helps you understand them a lot better. Still, lots of questions unanswered. Why does a shepherd know so much?
Mm-hmm. No, I didn't feel like I was missing anything, and then I watched the TV show and I was like, oh, I was missing a lot.
Yeah.
But House of the Dragon is so beautiful. I was bawling my freaking eyes out because he goes and sits in a chair and oh my gosh, it was so good.
It was so good.
And like
was this
nothing like nothing happens in the show. Like one guy dies, but as soon as he started talking, you knew he was gonna die, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like it was shocking, but it wasn't shocking.
Yeah,
but like
you get a half decapitation. I like that they show that the tongue is still there.
There was literally nothing special about this episode, and it is the greatest thing that I've seen on TV. It is so good. The acting, I even liked the new Rhaenyra, and she's been my least favorite part of the team. Like, oh my god!
Yeah, the new Alison also felt a lot better than in the previous episodes somehow.
I didn't mind her in the previous episodes.
Yeah,
but
I mean, she was okay. She was okay. Rhaenyra was a little bit.
But she was good in this.
She was scene, did really, really
the
well.
whole I cried twice. Right, the throne scene where he comes and sits down, and then when they're having dinner, and
those idiots,
he gets up and just starts begging them, guys. Can we just be friends? And I started crying again.
Family.
It was so good. And Matt Smith doesn't say a word of dialogue in this entire episode. And it's oh my gosh.
He doesn't have to. Everything.
He didn't need to. He bent down and picked up a crown. And you knew everything that was going on inside of his head.
And he made like a pose, I think, like, I don't know, he was like moving, he was protecting like his kids, something in a part after the...
And they weren't even his kids.
Holy moly, yes, holy moly.
Contrast that to the scene in Rings of Power, not this episode, but the previous episode.
Oh my god.
When Durin is talking to Durin and he rips off the vestigible whatever and throws it on the floor, and they don't trust the audience
pick it up.
and
then
don't
he
pick
goes
it up.
and
It's
tries
not
to
yours
pick
anymore.
it back up. No,
it's
not yours anymore. I think that was implied.
Exactly.
He didn't took it off because you look ridiculous on it. No, it's because you.
And I love the fact that because you have been seeing, they set up such a good conflict between Rhaenyra and Alicent all season, and you're seeing kind of how they're both building into all these different things, and the King Viserys being like, please, let's stop, and they start saying, you know what, you're right, we can figure this out, we will marry our sons to their aunts. Okay, it's going to be weird, but whatever. This is what we do because this is Game of Thrones. We'll do it. We can figure this out. We can be friends. We're going to get along. Everything's cool. And you have these boys, and they're just kicking at everything.
I don't even know what that necklace thing is.
Yeah.
No, it had never been brought up. Apparently, it was like his the thing that said that he was the prince. Like,
but circling back,
my emotional tie to it.
My absolute favorite bit is the completely, it has to happen because you know that this is leading to a conflict. The way that last final scene is.
No, but for a brief moment, you think there might not be. You're
you
like,
think it's possible?
oh,
But it's like, okay,
they're
how's it
gonna be friends.
Yes.
They make up, and you're like,
and you think
I'd be fine with watching this too. Can we just be friends for the rest of the show?
Those two ladies are going to be friends, and it's going to be cool. And guess what? Their kids are going to mess it up because their kids are poopy heads. But no, and then you get this whole thing, and it's the whole it's Aegon, his dream, and
which directly compares to the other deathbed scene from Rings of Power. That's
what I was saying earlier.
Because he doesn't notice that his daughter is suddenly not black. Like,
yeah, that's exactly what I was saying earlier. Is you compare and contrast those two scenes.
The mistaken reveal on the deathbed, and it worked in one, and it didn't work in the other.
And it's not even that it didn't work. It was a why? What's the point?
He opens up saying, "I know what you've been doing in secret at night when I'm asleep." What?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
And then he tells her to
go.
Go
Look at the Palantir.
That's
don't go too long.
None of it was connected.
Yeah, it was so bizarre. Whereas this one, it's just it's following up where she was
continuing the conversation with his daughter,
like the night before with his daughter, where she was begging, "Please tell me that it's real."
My biggest pet peeve in TV and movies is when the entire plot hinges on people not communicating. Right,
yes.
Because it's used so frequently that the whole, like, if any normal person was in this situation, they would just talk and they'd say, "Oh, you meant this, I meant this," okay. But in this, it's so freaking brilliant because there are two characters with the same name, and she thinks that he's talking about the one, but he's talking about the other. And what makes it even better is she could have followed up and said, like, "Well, do you mean this? Do you mean this?" But that's not her character. She heard what she wanted to hear from the king. And it's not just a mistaken identity, and it's not just characters not talking. It's them seeking affirmation for what they want really in life. And so when he says the thing, it's not some stupid plot hole. It's, this is my freaking excuse. And it's so brilliant.
And it's the other thing that makes that covers up that being any kind of a miscommunication plot hole is the freaking state of the king, is him being because if she were to be like, "Do you mean our son?" he would have been like, "The dream." I think she actually even did say our son, and the dream is real, it's true. He needs to unite the realm, and he's like, because he's out of it.
Aemon will, it's Aemon's promise to unite the people, and you're like, and it's just confirmation bias. She's like, well, I knew that he would have a better choice anyway. I knew it, of course,
because he says the prince,
and you see also
the prince that was promised.
The prince that was promised.
And she's like, our prince, our son, Aegon, and she's. Aegon's dream,
and he's talking about it. And Aemon, it's like 3,000 years old or whatever. You're like,
and those kids. Mark is 100% right. Those little kids are,
Well, they're all no. They're not little kids. They're all completely new actors. They're all completely new.
I love the new one with his.
And they're good.
The grown up Aemon, not Aegon, not the older brother, not Aegon. The one that's raping servants or whatever. Aemon is the younger, Aegon is the older.
Yes.
So Aemon is the one with his eye cut. Oh,
it's
man.
funny because he looks like a tiny Daemon, and he does. Like and he looks up to Daemon. That's why when Daemon stoops up, when Aemon is doing his whole bit of
but you can even see in that scene that Daemon like respects him. He's like smiling, even though he's on the other side.
That scene was,
they are on two different sides of this conflict, but he can't help but be proud of him.
They're setting up such great conflict too, because you see that shot where Daemon is protecting Luke and whatever the other kids, Rhaenyra's kids, and then you also see Corlys back there at that point too, where he's like, "I'm going to be on this side too." And I think that was previous episode, but whatever it was, oh gosh, it was all so good because they're the ones that are going to be like, "We want this to happen," and these guys are the ones that want this to happen.
Yes, the previous. But I mean that scene in the oh my god, it was better even than the scene of the wedding.
I was just about to. I was going to say, compare this. I haven't seen the original Game of Thrones, so I don't know the Red Wedding. But at the same time,
this show is better than Game of Thrones.
This scene had so much drama in that dinner scene without the gore and the shock of what I've heard from the Red Wedding. But the
Red Wedding is a great scene.
Red
Wedding, yeah,
oh, it was so good.
Yeah, the Red Wedding is. I was meaning the wedding in the episode 3.
No, but and the whole,
which was also really well done.
The entire time that they're eating, you're just on pins and needles, thinking that something is going to happen.
Go down.
Right, and you straight up have the sister say like, "Beware the thing that's under the floorboards" or whatever.
Yeah,
which is hinting to something that happens later.
And even if nothing really that like outrageous happens, but still what happens is perfect, and still was the suspense had a nice resolution. Everything that they say it was like spot on, that what children would say, what series would say, what Rhaenyra would say, like literally like has been so good.
And there is some like balance to both sides of it, because I actually caught up on both episodes from the previous week and then the previous week and last week, last night, and gosh, the way that the Aemon goes in and takes over the one big dragon that was the mother's, and like he's been trying to figure out how to get into him, and he has earned that dragon, and I can understand the daughter being he stole it, but
definitely stole it, but
but that's the thing is like. If he earned it. Like that's the thing is if he had because the way that they've set it up, these dragons bond with the people, right? And so you have to have the authority. The dragon has to respect you. So he put himself in a position where he was being respected by this dragon. But it also makes perfect sense that these girls are kind of upset because that's their mother's dragon, and they thought would probably have become theirs. So that whole conflict was going on great. Not to mention there's already a conflict between Rhaenyra's kids and Alicent's kids. And so when you have that fight going on, it was just so beautifully done. And then the way that it's like, her kid.
So you just barely saw the fight with the kids then. The choreography in that fight between like 13-year-old actors is better than everything in Rings of Power.
But it's not as flashy as the Galadriel one.
No, but it's good.
But the part when he throws sand, and when he throws sand in the eye, and the other guy is like, that was coordination way better than the Rings of Power. I was like, teamwork. Finally, some teamwork, and not Galadriel doing everything by herself.
But then and then you get around to that argument between them saying like, your son took my son's eye. Well, yeah, they were calling them bastards, and it's like, well, yeah, because this guy had went and stole this other dragon. It all makes sense, but it makes sense why the mothers are both protective
Lord
of their.
Strom, go get me an eye.
And my favorite was the like, yes,
Strom,
two strong,
Cole, Sir Cole,
yeah. Oh, but
Strom's the other one.
I loved the Aemon standing up and being like, these two fine princes, they are brave and wise and strong.
So
I'm just complimenting them. Oh man, he played that so beautifully at that dinner. Yeah. He was such a little piece of work.
The show is like, but like the way that Patty Constantine has portrayed like the entire lifespan of King Viserys,
and him taking off that mask.
He deserves every single award in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Holy crap!
Well, and the makeup team and the CGI team that worked on him, all of them definitely should get a little piece of that too.
Props. Yeah,
he did all the acting, but boy, they put that little chef's kiss on.
I have never I was actively rooting for the show to be boring from here on out because his performance was so dang good. I would have been okay with it. I would have been okay if nothing happened in the rest of the show and it was literally just people being friends again.
Just scenes of the council or something.
Just like,
the show's over. Roll credits. Like it's like it was so
From here on, they just show like it's like a house and there's a dragon sitting in it, and it's like an hour of that every week.
It just turns into Fuller House of the Dragon.
House of the Dragon.
That scene of him walking should be studied in like film school or something, because it's holy moly, how do you create so much tension?
There's no one is saying a single thing.
I was just expecting him to drop dead right there, and I was just waiting for him to
I've been
die.
expecting him to drop dead for like 3 episodes, and that was 15 years ago in Showtime.
Damon is Matt Mead is a genius.
When Rhaenyra and Step by Dragon Step, when Rhaenyra and Laenor first got married, and he collapses at their wedding, I thought, oh, there he's dead. Oh no. We got a 10-year jump and he's still alive.
I was expecting him to be
another
dead
6-year jump and he's still alive. It's like, oh my gosh.
He just keeps losing more and more pieces of his body.
Yeah. Well, and seeing him sitting in the bed, I was convinced that they had finally gotten a different actor, because how much they changed and just worked his face. He looked
the same guy.
Thin.
It's
and
the
so
same guy.
emaciated versus what you see in the first handful of episodes. Oh gosh,
inaccurate. That's probably accurate, because that's how an old man who has no dental head and stuff. That's probably how he would look like.
Martina's trying to one up my Fuller House or Full House of the Dragon with Growing Pains of a Dragon and Step by Dragon Step. But how about Corey in the House of the Dragon?
Ooh.
Nice. But holy cow.
Welcome back, Dragon.
Like you said, when he takes out the mask, the impact, like I felt like almost like if it was my like family member, and see him that decay, that rotting teeth and skin. It was holy. I was like you said, almost crying. Like for a minute, I was weeping. Like
very very well done.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and
Absolutely
when he's with Rhaenyra, and that's the reason why the final scene makes so much sense, because when he's with Rhaenyra and Rhaenyra is asking about the dream, it's like that's payoff right there. Like that's literally I don't know if that's foreshadowing, but that's payoff.
It's foreshadowing. Payoff. It's payoff.
Well, and taking that,
it's a twist, because the twist makes sense.
We were so excited for them to start getting along, and then for them to pull out the rug from underneath you. When you know that's what they're going to do, and how they pull that rug out from underneath you, you're just like, this is what you see when you see
You Dragon Me Crazy.
I'm in the
I'm not even going to dignify that comment by reading it, but I'll show it.
The way that they do this is so, it breaks your heart. It's so well done.
Yes,
it was beautiful.
And like you said, I was wondering if this was the best episode in the season, but this is probably the best episode in television.
And
yeah,
probably. You were saying before, Game of Thrones usually does the really good stuff the second to last episode.
Comparable.
That's the one that's coming out tonight. Is the second to last episode.
I'm trying to think of another, like honestly, the only thing that I can compare it to that gave me such a visceral reaction is the Lord of the Rings, the movies. Like I can't watch those without crying, and this, I didn't even realize how invested I was, and that those two scenes.
Maybe one episode of Breaking Bad. I don't know if Ozymandias.
I was just about to say this is one of those Walter White, like having that rug pulled out.
Like when Hank,
don't make that decision.
Hank dies.
Yeah, with Hank.
When Hank dies, that's probably the only one that comes even close. But that season was not that good.
I didn't cry with Hank because he went out so cool. It was just like, yeah.
No, but he was
don't
like
cry
chilling,
for my brother, you know.
He was chilling.
But I had it. Okay.
Oh,
I did get pretty emotional with the end of Better Call Saul. Because
need to catch up on that.
Because the character is good. But the ending got me pretty worked up. But this was more.
Yeah. But yeah, you're trying to make your rings of power into to Better Call or to Breaking Bad or anything like that. No. this is how you have that kind of story. It's not even really the same, but it's like that kind of, you're invested and you pull that out even though you know it's coming. You're just like, no, don't do it. No, they're totally gonna they're gonna make that, they're gonna read that wrong and cause all these problems again that we almost fixed.
It was so close. They were so close to just being happy.
Mm-hmm.
And then he
But this
leaves,
is
and then he just leaves the room, and it
Dude.
falls apart.
And the justification.
It's all because of Aemon.
And then he's in bed and tells Alicent it's all about Aegon. Aegon needs to unite the realm and dies.
Dude,
it is brilliant.
And the moment when you need it the most, he's gone.
Having fun there, David.
Yep.
100 years passed since the House of the Dragon took over. Only Viserys, master of the acting, could save the world. But when the world needed him most, he died in his bed.
Saying the wrong thing to the wrong, the right thing to the wrong person. Yes.
Oof.
But this is weird because this is probably the first example of a show or movie that is better than the books, because the books is in nothing like this. In the justification in the books is
it's bullet points.
It's because Alicent tells his kids, Aegon and Aemon, that his children will be persecuted by Rhaenyra's children, and the whole lineage will be exterminated by Rhaenyra or something like that. And that's the whole justification of why they start the wars and why they keep fighting and why they hate Rhaenyra so much. But now it makes sense. Now they fixed that plot hole that maybe, this wasn't a plot hole, it was just unreliable narrators. But they fixed it perfectly. Now they have a reason. Because they think that they are the prince that was promised, and that was it
gives them a reason to just go all out against each other. They both think that they're divine providence.
That makes it even harder. The throwdown is going to be even harder.
Alicent's kids are such garbage.
I do have a criticism though, but it's from the last episode, which I was going to bring up, and then I forgot to finish it when I was talking about the it's a problem that's created from the race swapping the Valyrians. When they fake the death of Laenor, the body that they use is a white guy.
No, I think he's
the skin's just too charred to be able to tell anything.
But they only threw his face into the fire. His legs were sticking out. I was like, are they not going to notice? Are they not going to notice when they prepare him for this is a white guy?
But who did they throw in? Because we don't see who they threw in.
It's the guy that Daemon sneaks up and kills a guy.
No, that's right. Okay.
He just goes and
what was going on with that one scene where he goes and kills the one guy.
He was skin black guy. I think, my opinion, he was.
It was dark. It was dark, but it looked like a white guy. It looked like he had the same skin tone as
Daemon. Like a white guy that Daemon killed. I didn't know that was who it was supposed to be that they ended up throwing in the fire instead.
Who else would it be?
Actually,
that's what it meant.
Right. You're probably right. I think you're probably right. Although the way that they, I think, can kind of hand wavy that a little bit is because Laenor and all of them, they're mixed, and so it's believable.
I thought it would. I thought they were going to bring it up, and I thought that was going to be why the parents realized.
Why the parents realize that it's
fake, and I thought that would have been a cool dynamic when they're like, "Wait, this is not my son.
This isn't our son. Yeah,
got white legs, like his face is mangled and burned in the fire, but
hands and whatever. But
it's a white guy. I thought that was them trying to say, like, trying to give them a clue to say, hey, don't hate us, don't still be on her side, please.
Yes,
but
I'm gonna have to rewatch that because
maybe I'm wrong.
That was probably the mistake, that you could take out of the season.
I mostly was confused because I thought that Daemon really did want him to be killed, and that they decided, they were like, no, I'm not going to kill you, we're going to sneak off and do our own thing.
They get the only happy ending in Game of Thrones ever.
Basically. Yeah.
I mean, yes.
See what you did there.
They're getting lots of happy endings.
Exactly.
Dude, that episode is just
so good, so good,
so good. I still watch it. I have watched it 3 times already.
But how many times have we mentioned that they do so much exposition without even speaking? Like anytime Damon is on, there have been entire episodes where Damon doesn't speak a word. The episode, I guess just 2, because sometimes he says two. Sometimes he says 2 words. But in this episode, he doesn't speak. And in the episode where he fights the crab boy, he doesn't say a single word. And he's
the only things he says in these episodes are puns. The pun, like when he says, "like, oh, he can keep his tongue."
But like not this episode, but the last one, when everyone shows up to the funeral, there's literally like 15 minutes of people just looking at each other, and they're all saying different things. Right? And you know what's happening.
It was a little excessive, I think, just a little bit, but it still worked. It was only the barest amount excessive, but it was like, yeah, you can tell everybody's sitting there going like, so, yep.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, but it was so well done.
Yeah. I mean, there's still 2 more episodes, 2 whole episodes of this.
Tonight, there's one more there.
Yeah. I don't know why you're watching this show. You should be watching House of the Dragon, but maybe stay until we're done. But I think I'm done.
Yeah. Quick shout out to Robbie Coltrane, just died a couple days ago. Ruby's Hagrid.
Psychopaths on Twitter are celebrating.
What the hell? Yeah, that was so weird.
Because he supported J.K. Rowling. So he's burnt. They literally said burn in hell.
Wow.
Oh gosh.
It's funny because that guy like didn't look
because he believes something slightly different than you do. He's gonna burn in hell.
I mean,
because he stood up for the person that gave him his most significant character.
Yeah, and probably most of the money that he ever won, like he ever earned. I mean,
last night I popped on after I watched House of the Dragon. I popped on that 20th anniversary special that they had for just.
I'm not going to dignify that with a view because they uninvited her.
She popped up in it in a little bit. She was in it for a little bit, not as much as she probably should have been, but
okay,
it was more about the filmmaking than it was about her. But yeah, she was in it.
I was gonna make a meme in my latest video on the Rings of Power, the review, when Nori is talking to Gandalf and he's like, Istar means wizard, and I was like, Nori going to say, "Are you a wizard, Harry?"
Yeah,
you're a wizard.
I was like, nah, I'm not gonna make that. It just happened that day. I was like, no, I have respect for the guy. I'm not gonna make that. I'm a wizard, Harry. But yeah, I used to love him. He was almost like a father figure. I always thought him of like a father figure. He was great on those movies, and he was so heartwarming. You felt the love when you saw his character. You felt the love he had for Harry and the love he had for the kids.
Talk about another movie and set of movies that show the ridiculous size of that character and do so relatively consistently.
Yeah, exactly.
I just pulled it up, but I did it in the wrong browser, so I can't pull it up to show everyone. But I was wrong. It is a half black guy that he kills. The demon does. But it's really dark, so I didn't notice at first. But he's also he's a mestizo,
Yeah. Like I said, he was a little bit moreno.
I was wrong. My one complaint is like it's not even
perfect. There you go.
It was just really hard to see, and it looked like a white guy the first time I saw it.
They had to find a guy with a similar skin color, like because.
But if that's the case, though, he would be a Valerian, and one of them going missing would raise a lot of.
Exactly.
It's still a little bit of a problem.
Still a little bit of because he was a Valerian. That my perception is that he was like a costume,
maybe he wasn't a Valerian. I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe not, but he was
If
there.
He was
didn't have the
there.
white
He would have been a Valerian though. Like
He'd have had to have been a pretty distant Valerian or something. I don't know, because he didn't have the
Yeah,
white
like
hair
a
at all.
cousin or something.
Yeah,
his hair
He
is a
has his
little
hair
bit
cut.
natty. Yeah.
He had like the
Well, but he
face,
just didn't.
you know,
He just
middle
wasn't
earth
white.
fate.
Yeah.
In the
Well, and
middle
the thing with that too, the reason that I was confused was because for a second there I thought that because it was intercutting between them where Damon's talking to him at the Stepstones or whatever, talking to the boyfriend, talking to Carl, and I thought that it was then cutting between Damon talking to him, telling him we need you to kill Laenor, and then him going and killing him in a different place. It was kind of weird. That's why I was a little confused. But it's different person,
at
different
first I
actor,
thought
yeah.
he was killing the boyfriend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, me too. Yeah, it was yeah, like you said, it was dark, so you couldn't notice a lot of what was happening. But maybe that was the intention too, because you know, in the shadows and this whole like almost Assassin's Creed part of the show.
Yeah.
But it's been great. It's been a great freaking show, and I'm pretty happy that we have this amazing palate cleanser.
This is him. This is the scene.
Yep. See, and that looks like it's the
barely see him though, right? It's blurry, but yeah, it's dark.
Yeah.
There we go.
He looks like Laenor, but with dark hair, you know?
Yep.
And short hair, yeah.
So you don't have to assume that all of them are related, Alan, you know.
Yeah, they all look the same to me, so apparently I'm a bigot. That's, you know. I think we need to, you know, make it our word, you know. Only we can say bigot to each other. Like, what up, my bigots? You know, let's go. And then when people call us bigots, we can call them bigots.
There you go.
Because only we can say that word, guys.
I mean, I was gonna say another word, but it's probably going to get misinterpreted. So now I'm not gonna say it. But you probably thought of it.
Ahí está el español. Puede ser.
Yeah, they can't demonetize me in Espanol. I don't know.
They can. I think
Yeah.
they can.
Yeah, probably
their bots.
Yeah. Well, it's tough though, because there are so many like there are so many words that like, oh, this is offensive in one state and it's not offensive in the other. I got in trouble saying some things that like I learned to say, and then across the border of a different Mexico state, and they're like, "Oh, you can't say that here."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the.
Yeah, I was in the States, and so I had to worry about not just within states of Mexico, but then also like different countries will have different feelings on different words. So
yeah.
Is I'm just gonna say it, I'm gonna risk it. Is where you are from in Mexico? Is it offensive to use the term joto?
No, it's actually used.
Okay,
oftenly.
Yeah, because it's very offensive to use that term in Guadalajara.
Really?
But I was taught it by someone who's not native, and I used it, and they're like, "Oh!"
I mean, I don't use it as often as before, you know, because it's a little bit problematic.
Yeah.
You know, if you are in a city, but if you are with your pals and just joking around, you throw that word too oftenly. Yeah.
Mark Clark's comment here is a perfect ending to this episode.
Well, as technical people of color, yeah, David and I can get away with those kind of things. All right, All right, Jotos, let's end this stream.
Soy güerito. Soy bien güerito.
A bunch of pinche pendejos. Let's see you guys next week when we don't have to talk about Rings of Power anymore.
Or She-Hulk.
Thank God.
Or She-Hulk. Thank goodness. Just Andor and House of the Dragon.
House of the Dragon.
And probably a movie or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if anyone watches 3.5 hours this and decides to demonetize me for saying puta madre, well, then see you later. Bye.
Es que puta madre.